So now you're on the moon, Tony?
It's a safe space.
Can you hear us, Herman? You can hear me? Yes. Hello?
Hey, Gina.
¿Qué pasó?
I'm waiting to get into the meeting to check my backlog to make sure.
Hedman.
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Oh, okay, perfect. Lewis says that he's trying to log in, but he can't. I don't know if you can help him out with that.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
That Lewis is here and he's trying to log in, but it says waiting on the meeting host. I don't know if you need to let him in or something.
Yeah, I need to let him in.
Okay.
Mayor, you're muted. Mayor, nobody can hear you. You're muted.
Herman,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry to bother you now for this, but the mayor
Okay.
did not see how to block the background. You see him, you can see him with that whiteboard. He's trying to follow the instructions that we gave him with the choose virtual background. It's not happening for him. ¿No sabe cómo se puede hacer? What other way of doing it?
Let me see if Claricel is there. I think she can walk her through while I
Yes.
rename. She has done it
Claricela,
before.
right. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Let me-
let me
Mayor,
put her,
can you hear
on.
us? Mayor, are you
Did
listening to
save
us?
the file to your computer? I can't hear you.
Yes.
You save the file and you find it when you go, the little camera on the bottom left-hand corner where it says stop video, the little arrow next to it.
Hold up. Yeah, I have it. I have it here. I'm looking at it right now. I have it in my folders.
Shoot, okay, the little camera on the bottom left-hand corner. You see that there's an arrow up right next to it, right?
Yes. It only shows me HP True Vision Full HD or video settings.
Video settings.
Okay. Where do I go? Okay. I clicked on video settings. What do I do?
You don't have right below.
was fielding phone calls from Washington State, various municipalities there in Oregon, Maryland, you name it, you name the nation, because we're ahead of the curve when it comes to this type of public participation. So I want to make sure, and this type of format. So you have a lot of cities that are watching us tonight because they're using us as the model for them to transition. So I know Hemang and IT, Don, and the whole team, and Gina have been working with cities everywhere. But with that being said, thank you guys for participating, chiming in, from my colleagues to staff, administration. Again, I know this is trying times for our community, but we coming together, we will get through this. So thank you guys very much, and let's have a good meeting. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
His video is showing up.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, Gina. Let me unmute everybody. So. Go ahead, Gina.
Gina's muted.
Hey, man, you need to unmute Gina.
Yeah, see, Gina. Gina, can you mute?
Okay.
Go ahead, Gina. Yeah.
Good evening. Councilmember Alvarez.
Present.
Councilmember Collazo.
Present.
Councilmember Dieguez.
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Present.
Councilmember Ruano.
Present.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Here.
Mayor Sid.
Present.
Mayor, you have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're on to the moment of silence, our prayer today by Pastor Stewart from Miami Lakes United Methodist Church.
Give me 1 second, Mayor, to locate the pastor.
Thank you, Mayor. First, want to start and be thankful for the incredible leadership that our community has provided, our mayor has provided, our town council has provided, and I want to especially reach out to those people who are on the front lines and unsung heroes that we often don't recognize. I'm thinking in particular about those people in Publix and our grocery stores and our gas stations who are meeting this crisis head on, and I'm so thankful for the effort that they're doing, the dedicated effort that, and I hope you get a chance to, if you're out there, to thank those people who are every day going to work to making sure that we feel comfortable and that we stay safely in our homes. So thankful for that. So with that being said, would you join me in whatever way you're comfortable, that we might have this moment of this time together, we might focus on realizing how vulnerable we really are, what an incredible opportunity is to work and be together and love each other in the way God wants us to. So I'm praying, and bow your head if you would, or close your eyes, or just find a moment of silence. Lord, I'm praying for each and every one of us that are in our homes tonight that are worried and anxious about what might be before them, what the day might bring. I'm praying for those people who are, as we said, working on the front lines, the doctors and the nurses and all the care people that are helping those who are struggling with life and death situations. I'm praying for the family who are grieving today. Those who have lost ones that are near and dear to them, who have lost family members and brothers and sisters and parents and grandparents. I'm praying for them that they might find peace in this time of trouble. I'm praying for our town. I'm praying for everybody in it. I'm praying for our community. I'm praying for our country. And I'm praying for those people in places that we'll never hear about that are going through similar struggles. God, you're an amazing God, and I know that you will cover us and you will anoint us and you'll protect us. But we must realize that you're trying to speak to us, that you have something to say to us, God. And I just pray that we hear what it is that you want us to know about you, because I know you love us. I know you will watch over us, God. I know you will shepherd us through this crisis in a way that brings peace to people who are fearful, bring grace to people that are struggling with finding direction, bring mercy to those who are struggling in our hospitals right now. We love you, and I know how much you love us, God. And maybe we don't really know how much you love us. So I pray that you open our hearts and our minds to your will, Father, that I pray that you help us see what it is to be truly your children. In your name we pray and give thanks for this time. Amen.
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 Thank you, Pastor Stewart. Now we have doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Give me 1 second.
Mr. Mayor, if I can ask Pastor to, if he wants to share his video, I think he wants to be seen.
Absolutely. Give me 1 second.
There we go. Nice.
Leading the Pledge of Allegiance will be Cade Bowden.
Dane, D-A-N-E.
Dane Bowden.
Yep, son.
Please join me.
Dane, welcome.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dane. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Now we're moving on in our meeting. Now we are on to the order of business, deferrals, additions, deletions, council. And let me make sure. Are there any motions to adopt the order of business?
A motion.
There's a motion and there's a second. We have several seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes to adopt the order of business. We are on to public comments. Madam Clerk, do you want to read out your message?
Mayor, this
Yes.
is town manager. I believe that council member was trying to get your attention for the that vote.
Thank you. I was trying to unmute myself, but it wasn't letting me. I just wanted to move to add a report from the manager to discuss the budgetary impacts of the novel coronavirus on our fiscal year.
Got it. Let's get a motion to put us in the proper posture to reopen the order of business.
So moved.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. We are back onto the order of business. There's an item being added on to manager's report on the budgetary impact by Councilman Dieguez. Are there any motions?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Seeing no, nobody against, the motion passes. So we've officially added item 16B to the agenda as a manager's report. We're back onto the order of business as adopted. Do we have a motion to adopt the entire order of business?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you, guys. Madam Clerk, please read your your message for the public comments. But real quick,
Yes.
I know we had shared, you all had shared with me earlier that that today is World Autism Awareness Day, and it's lighted up blue. I know that's something we'll make happen at Town Hall. Hopefully, we're back up and running soon to make sure that that happens and we continue with our proper awareness on World Autism Day. We got to make sure we work with the school district, especially now more than ever, and our Special Needs Advisory Board. Madam Clerk.
The town of Miami Lakes seeks public input and participation. However, the public purpose is not served when citizens become disorderly or disrupt the meeting. Any person making impertinent or slanderous remarks or who boisterous while addressing the town council should be barred from further audience before the council, unless permission to continue or again address the council is granted by the majority of the council members present. No clapping, applauding, heckling, verbal outbursts in support of or in opposition to a speaker or her remarks shall be permitted. Public comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. All electronic devices must be set to silent mode or turned off. Persons exiting the chambers, well, that doesn't apply tonight, so let's have a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Hemang, I still see you're with us. Are any of the members who logged on, are they here for public comments or just to monitor the meeting?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, let me go one by one. People from the public is already joined. We have approximately 10 or 12 people. I'm going to go one by one and ask them if they are here for listening or public comments. So bear with me. Gina, we have the first person online. Please proceed.
Good evening and welcome to the virtual special call. Can you please name yourself and your address? Good evening. Can you hear us?
Is that for me?
Good evening.
I have Mr. Cesar Mato.
Yes, good evening. My name is Cesar Mato, and I'm a resident in the Eagle Nest area.
Mr. Matos, before you proceed, would you like us to see you? Would you like to share the screen, or you want to stay as it is? We can hear you, but we don't see you, and you have an option.
Sure, yeah, I don't have a problem with, I can share my screen. Is that how I should do it?
Okay, 1 minute, sir, and thank you. Herman, can you make that possible?
Sure.
Yeah, let me see it.
He's gonna try, Mr. Matos, and thank you.
Okay, sure, no problem.
So, Mr. Mato, you should see, okay, there we go. We have you on the screen.
Yes.
Mr. Matos, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
No problem. My name is Cesar Mato, and I live at 6312 Gage Place, so nearby to the town. Yep. And so I have, basically I have two questions. One, I've seen that there's been some information put out by the town insofar as the data granularity that I had called for a couple of times, and I've been told that unfortunately that's information that wasn't provided to the town. When I refer to the granularity, I learned, for example, that this afternoon we have upped the number of infected residents from 11 to 13 in a matter of, this is in a matter of 2 days. It comes to be about a 15% increase. And I'll follow up with my second question in regards to that number. But when I asked about granularity, I wanted more to know, I wasn't asking for the people's names or information, addresses. That was not my purpose because that's private information. But what I was asking for was to determine whether those were residents, actual residents, permanent residents in Miami Lakes. Second, whether those infected patients or infected residents had contracted via travel outside the states, or whether this was a community type infection. And of course, ages, that's important to know. And all of that comes to play when the town's making decisions insofar as further restricted movement of folks or number of options they have. So that's one question. My second question has to do with, has the town considered with surrounding towns upping up the restrictions? I still see people out. I still get the sense that not everyone's up to the same page. And I know that Homestead, for example, has a curfew that starts at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and runs up to, I think, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'd like to know what the mayor's thoughts are in the matter of perhaps impressing more on the folks that this is a really serious situation And given that the number of cases keeps increasing, I just saw the numbers from the Florida State Health Department that we in Florida have around 9,000 cases. It's been up by 1,800 or 1,700 cases from the day yesterday. And so the numbers keep rolling up. And if I looked at the numbers that were reported 2 days ago, and the numbers were reported today for Miami Lakes, I think we have about 13 folks infected, whereas before it was 11. That's an increase of about 15% of cases. Now, if you extrapolate that on a 28 days until the end of April, that would bring that number up to potentially, I'm not saying this is just modeling, this would bring the number of infected people around 56.
Mr. Matos, I'm so sorry. The 3 minutes are up.
Okay, I'm done. Yeah.
Comments. But thank you. Thank you very much for your input. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Caesar. We'll get to your concerns and questions once we're done with public comments, and we'll get to the manager's complete explanation as to what is happening and what will happen in the future. So we'll make sure we get to all your concerns.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to go to the next person. So, Gina, just a quick reminder. Remember, there are some people in the public that is just listening, and other ones would like to make public comments. So let me get to the next one.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the virtual special call.
Good evening. This is Roman Garcia. I am the chairman of the Sports Hall of Fame Committee. I'm here to speak on the item B.
Welcome. Welcome. Would you like for us to see you? We only see the name. We don't see your image.
Madam Clerk, I'm here to speak on a specific item on the agenda that Mayor Sid put up for the Sports Hall of Fame.
Would you like to speak now?
It's up to you guys. It's in
Okay.
regards to a vote, so.
Yes. You
Okay.
proceed, and thank you, Mr. Roman.
No problem. I know the mayor put up an item due to prevailing health that this candidate has. His name is Mike Uspensky. And some of the background on him is he was a star running back in football for Palm Beach High School in the late 1960s, where he also excelled in throwing the shot put, made it to the state championship. He was recruited to play football by the University of Florida in 1965. In 1972, he was hired to teach PE and as an assistant football coach at Hialeah Miami Lakes High School. He went on to become the head coach in 1978, and in 1987, he went from being a PE teacher to being a guidance counselor. While coaching at HML as an assistant coach in football, the school won a state championship in 1975. And as the head coach, he went on to win district, regional, and sectional titles in 1978 and again in 1990. The HML Athletic Department awarded him their Award of Excellence for Outstanding Leadership, dedication to the football program, as serving 21 years with them, 15 being as the head coach. He was also honored by the American Football Coaches Association for 35 years as a member, and the Florida Athletic Coaches Association Service Award for 25 years of dedicated service to coaching. He was an educator for 36 years, a coach for 21, serving the youth in the Hialeah Miami Lakes community and teaching them the skills necessary to be successful. The town of Miami Lakes dedicated November 7, 2017 as Mike Uspensky Day in a ceremony at Town Hall, where he was honored for his positive impact in teaching and working with the youth of the Miami Lakes community. His dedication to the students he served for 36 years, both in teaching and coaching, makes him most deserving to be inducted into the town of Miami Lakes. And the reason we have brought this gentleman up before you, separate from our normal procedure, is due to the fact that he is in not great shape as far as health goes. We're still waiting to get a final update. As of Monday, when we had our committee meeting, he wasn't doing very well. We haven't gotten any other updates since, but that's why we wanted to bring this to get him, to try to get him elected and at least alert him that he was not only nominated for the position, but also elected to the class of 2020.
Thank you very much, Chair. You guys are doing a great job. We'll be discussing that item a little bit later in the meeting, but thank you for the background. Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Okay,
So
Herman.
I'm gonna go to the next person. Give me a second.
You ready?
No, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me know. Thank you.
Okay, Gina, the person, the next public
The next
person is on. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening and very welcome to the special call meeting that we're having virtually. Can you hear us? You hear me? Good evening. Hello? Good evening. Do you hear us?
Is this me, Jose Diaz?
Yes, we see you. We see a picture of you, Mr. Jose Felix, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Felix, please state your address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Yeah,
Thank
Jose
you.
Felix Diaz, 2 Alhambra Plaza, Suite 102, Coral Gables, Florida, 33134.
Thank you.
Do I start?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, my comment's very brief. It's related to item 14E, which is the rock mining moratorium that the vice mayor has proposed. The item obviously is a work in progress, and I understand the neighborhood concerns. I represent a lot of different construction clients, from the transportation builders to developers that rely on rock mining activity in Miami-Dade County to build critical infrastructure like roads and hospitals and schools. And just yesterday, Governor DeSantis issued an executive order expediting almost $2 billion in critical infrastructure. So the only concern here is that this one item might be sending the wrong message to the county. As a matter, and in addition to that, the county actually got a correspondence today from the state as well, including a list of critical industries, and in there was what they termed as critical manufacturing. That includes supplies for infrastructure and transportation during this time of need. And all the construction for the whole state really happens in this lake belt. And even though Miami-Dade County has several different companies, my understanding is there's only one company that's actually doing business in Miami Lakes. So to shut down all rock mining activity in Miami-Dade County would be an extreme measure, and we just don't want the town to send the wrong message to the county, to the mayor, or to the state. So all I ask is for your consideration. Several of you who I've spoken with have been very receptive, and you've told me what's going on with the neighborhoods, and I understand your conundrum. All I ask is that if you guys do discuss this item later, that you attack it with a scalpel and not with a machete, because there are a lot of unintended consequences. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Herman, proceed with the next public comment, please.
Yes. Give me a second. Go ahead, Gina.
Good evening. Welcome to the special call meeting. You may speak. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Can you actually hear me? Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Hear you?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm here as
We
like,
don't see you.
and you're
Would you
not
like-
gonna. No, thank you.
No? Okay.
No,
Thank you. Welcome. Name and address, please.
Dolores Hemmings, 14730 Lewis Road, Miami Lakes. and I'm just here to listen. So
Thank you
thank
very
you for this opportunity. And please proceed with your meeting.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Okay,
Herman,
next one.
next call, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Gina.
Good evening. Welcome to the virtual special call meeting. Good evening. Hello. Good evening. Do you hear us? You still have the...
They may be muted. Just remind them that they may be muted.
No, he's actually, the microphone is on, but I don't hear any background noise, so I don't know if the person is still there.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to the next call and then we go on another round. We can catch him later.
Perfect. Thank you, Herman.
Next call is on.
Good evening. Welcome to the special call meeting. Do you hear us? I see a name.
Yeah, the person mute him. The person mute him or herself. So I guess he's just in listening mode.
Okay, thank you.
So let me just
listening to the meeting. They're joining us to listen. Okay,
let me go to the next one. Go on. We have the next one.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the special call meeting. Can you hear us?
Hi, good evening. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. We don't see you. Would you like to be seen?
I've been quarantined for 30 days. I think I'll save you guys
okay. We understand. Well, thank you very much. I welcome you for public comments. State your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Diana and John Newman, 6301 Simmons Street, Miami Lakes.
Thank you.
And we're actually just here listening, taking in all the information.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Herman, proceed.
Yeah, let's go on. Go ahead, Gina.
Good evening and welcome to the special call meeting. Hello, welcome. Welcome to the special call meeting.
Gina, do the users that sign in, do they have names that you can, instead of saying welcome, you can call them by their name so you can know that they're calling them?
Some do, some don't. I believe the one that we have, I think it's Jennifer, Ms. Jennifer.
Jennifer Rafferty.
Good evening, Ms. Jennifer. If you want to speak, it is your time right now.
I am not asking to speak. Thank you very much. I'm just enjoy listening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, so we will proceed with the next speaker.
Iman, Madam Clerk, do we have any other public comments? Anyone else wishing to speak?
We're going through the list.
Well, I have 2 written public comments that for the record I want to state. The first one was an email received earlier this morning by Ms. Hope Reynolds. I forwarded you the email, all of you, but I would like to state that for the record. And I also received an email around 5:30 today from the Executive Director, Ms. Vicky E. Tomas Martinez from the Miami-Dade Limestone Products Association. This was an email received again late in the afternoon, and I have forwarded you the email. So those are the only 2 written public comments that I have received in regards to tonight's special call meeting. Herman.
Got it. Well, thank you very much. And if there's any other members of the public wishing to speak, just chime in, send a note. Germán, can they send you notes directly? Can you type to them while they're on mute?
We have right now 1, 2, 3, 4 people still on the call. Let me see if we can get them.
Good evening. Can I proceed, Germán?
Yeah, let me go to the next call.
Oh, okay. Let me know. I see several names in my screen. I just don't want to make sure.
Yeah, let me open the next one.
Okay, thank you.
It takes a couple. Go ahead, Gina.
Good evening. Good evening and welcome. Yes. Good evening and thank you for calling.
You're welcome.
You may proceed speaking. You have 3 minutes, and please state your name and address. And if you want us to see you, let us know. We will try to see.
Go ahead. You can see my coronavirus beard growing up.
Okay, Germán, try to reach out to the gentleman.
Hey guys, how are you?
We see you. We see you well.
Raymond Garcia, 6796 Main Street. This is really quick. I just want to thank everybody, the mayor, the council, the town staff for doing this. This is really going a long way to quell fears. The more information you're able to give us, the better. And frankly, government continues. I'm letting everybody know about this meeting, and I think it's a great idea. So I just want to say great job to everybody in the town. And we're behind you all the way. So keep it going, guys.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you.
Thank you for participating. If you have another call,
we
please.
have probably 3 more. And let's see. We have one under the name Sophia. I think she's already on. If you want to try to reach out.
Yes. Good evening, Ms. Sophia, and welcome to the virtual special call meeting.
Good evening, Tina. I'm just here to listen.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Put it down. We have another person under the name Gloria. Give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Gina.
Good evening, Ms. Gloria. Welcome to the special call meeting. Do you hear us?
Yes, we do.
Thank you very much. Would you like us to see you? Would you in the screen or
no, no, it's just me and my husband, Gloria and Angel Martinez, and we're just here for the information that the town is going to offer. And thank you again for the information. It's much appreciated, and thank you for putting this together.
Oh, it is our pleasure, and thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Gloria.
Let's see, we have we have 1, 2 more. Let me see. I think we tried them before. Let's try them one more time.
Okay. Let me know.
Go ahead, Gina.
Good evening. If you're here for public comments, let me know so that we can all listen. If you're just joining the meeting to listen as well, let us know. And thank you. Thank you for participating. Can you hear us? Okay.
Is there a name?
HWJKO. So a couple of you. Just I'm gonna put it back. I think we tried twice already, so I'm gonna mute.
Okay.
And let me put it as done. I think we just have 1 more, and that's it.
Thank you, Germán.
I think we tried this one before, so Gina, go ahead.
Good evening. Welcome to the special call meeting. Can you hear us? If you're for public comments, you may speak now. If you're just listening, let us know, and we thank you for joining the meeting. Okay.
Yeah, I think we tried him before. Okay, let me just put it as done. And I think, let me do one last pass. One last person doesn't have microphone. He's just showing the video. I don't know if he can even listen to us. It's just one person, Gina, at the bottom. But I don't know if he or she can. She has the microphone unable. So.
Yeah, no. I mean.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Mayor and Madam Clerk, I think we are done with the public comments.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody that participated. Thank you to everybody that's listening in. Edmond, great job. Gina, great job. The first meeting, I know there's a lot of folks watching us, and they're going to be following in our footsteps along this process. But we're moving on to appointments. I don't see any appointments. None were given to me. Committee reports, either the consent calendar, there's nothing. Ordinances, first reading, nothing. We do have the first item, and a public hearing for ordinances, second reading. We don't have that also, but we do have a resolution, which is 13A. Mr. Attorney, you want to read that, Rezo?
Certainly. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Miami Lakes, Florida, modifying the budget approved by ordinance number 19-251, authorizing the town manager to take all action necessary to implement the terms and conditions of this resolution, providing for incorporation of recitals, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney and Counsel. Just an FYI, when we're going to speak, I'm going to just go down the line and just look at you guys and ask who wants to speak, because for some reason, the tab that had the hand up is no longer on my screen. So I'll just be calling you guys one by one to see who'd like to speak on this item, well, after the manager gives this explanation.
Thank you, Mayor. This is not a item adding money to the budget. It's just an item moving money from contingency into the capital line. Last month, you approved a contract to award the LPR contract for the 4 guard gates in Royal Oaks. The guard gates on the west side of Royal Oaks, they want to approve, or they approved the replacement of 5 gate arms, and there was not enough money in their capital line. So all this is doing is authorizing the transfer of $6,758 from that neighborhood service district's contingency line into their capital line so they can complete the purchase.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Are there any, before we get into discussion, is there a motion and a second?
I'll move it.
There's a motion. There's a motion and a second. We'll go around. All you have to do is nod your head if you don't want to speak. Vice Mayor. No, we have Councilman Rodriguez. Councilman Alvarez. I see Councilman Collazo. I'll go to Councilman Collazo because he did have his hand up. Councilman Collazo. And then we'll go to Councilman Morano, then Councilman Dieguez if they want to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. And through
Councilman
the
Collazo,
manager,
you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. And through the manager, the remaining budget for that line item that we're transferring is how much?
Before this transfer, there was $48,963. We're transferring out $67.58. That leaves a balance in the contingency of $42,205.
Is there any, has staff come back with any concern with regards to not having enough monies in those, in that line item to address any further need coming down the pike?
No, sir. The staff is recommending this approval on this line transfer. Those gate arms are over 20 years old, and if they don't get replaced, we'd have to repair them, and the replacement is an inevitable reality, and it would be throwing good money after bad. So the reality is that staff is recommending this transfer so that we can complete the purchase of those 5 gate arms. We're in concurrence with the neighborhood service district.
No, I just want to make sure that that there's enough in that line item for any further expenses that may come up through year's end. So what you told me is that we're good right now. I just wanted to see if staff had any concerns, or at least if that committee had brought up any issues that they may have in the future.
Okay, that's fine.
No concern, sir.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Verano? No? Thank you. Councilman Diegues? No? Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Hurry up.
Hey, Vice Mayor, just a heads up. I know, just mute yourself whenever, if you guys can, just mute yourself because we can hear everything that's happening. So just an FYI. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Item 13A. Councilmember Collazo.
Yes.
Councilmember Diegues.
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruano.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mayor Sid.
Yes.
The motion passes. Item 13A.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're on to new business, 14A. Councilwoman Verano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First and foremost, I want to extend virtual hugs and kisses to all of you and appreciate you for indulging me in this meeting tonight. I found it necessary to call for this meeting because I wanted us to meet as an elected body. We hadn't done so. These new changes had been implemented, and these are unprecedented times in this crisis, and I felt that it was important for us to meet as a group. Our purpose, government's purpose during times of crisis, is to maintain order, to give direction where it's needed, and to first and foremost ensure the safety of all of our town staff members and residents in the town of Miami Lakes. My heart goes out to everyone that's affected with COVID-19, to those that have lost loved ones, to those that are currently infected and scared, to those that have lost the ability to work and are worried about how to feed their families and how to bring money home, to our senior population, to our special needs residents who have lost their routines and are eager to return to normal life. You're all in my prayers every day. Have faith, this will pass. I just wanted to put that out there. So the reason why I called for this meeting is to, moving forward, to develop plans on where we're going to go depending on how this crisis moves, right? So I wanted the town manager to walk us through where we are now and how we got to where we are now as far as our virtual town hall. I wanted to discuss with our residents and with one another what services we are currently unable to provide because of our virtual capabilities or those that we don't have. Moving forward, how we're going to be addressing either an increase in cases in our community or hopefully a decrease in cases in our community. What can we expect on April 13th in either one of those scenarios? If we're unable to come back to work at Town Hall on April 13th, I wanted to discuss the possibility of perhaps bringing some of our essential services back online, maybe with the skeleton crew at Town Hall or something of the sorts. So this is why I wanted to call for this meeting. I didn't intend for it to be a very long meeting, so I apologize for that. But I want to pass it over to the manager so that he can walk us through some of these questions that I have for tonight.
Okay. I mean, I've kept, I think the entire council and I think our IT and communication staff has done an incredible job at keeping our public aware of all of the measures that we've been taking. We have taken and we have passed 6 emergency declarations. Some of them have been just extensions of the state of emergency, but the other ones were setting the rules for this meeting, and later on in the agenda are going to be those rules for this council to review. It was kind of the proverbial chicken or the egg, so it was hard to say, how do we have to if we don't have rules? So me and staff, and kudos to the town attorney who did a great job developing the draft of those rules. And So I passed the declaration authorizing those be the rules for this virtual meeting, and they'll be before you later in the agenda for you to consider adjusting them, amending them, whatever you want to do with them. So, but we had to put something together so this meeting could take place. The other ones were the safer at home order, requiring residents to stay at home, other than for the essential businesses like the supermarkets, the restaurants for takeout service, those types of things. Those are, I think we've gone over that multiple times of what are the essential services. The other one was the transitioning of town hall from a physical town hall to a virtual town hall. The threat of the virus was only getting closer and closer, and it was getting greater and greater. And I remember from my old days in public safety and being an incident commander on fire scenes, multi-story 3-alarm fires and multiple shooting incidents. And the number one thing that any incident commander worth his weight in gold is to bring his people home. And that was really the driving force of doing the virtual town hall, which was not exposing our town staff and visitors and residents that come to town hall, not increasing the exposures that they have to each other and the likelihood that this virus could be spread to one of our staff members. So that was the logic behind the virtual town hall. Now, I sent to all of you earlier today a pretty lengthy document that recapped, and it was a reporting, it was a compilation of all of our services, which ones we are able to continue doing remotely, which is almost everything, and which are the ones that we cannot do remotely. The majority of the items that we cannot do remotely are in the building department. There's a lot of person-to-person interaction in building. If you ask most residents, for what reason, what was the primary reason you ever had to go to town hall, it's going to be some type of a building issue. So we have been for several months trying to work in the building department towards a virtual platform where we can accept permit applications electronically, do plans review electronically. There have been some stumbling blocks in getting there. We upgraded the program that the building department uses. That upgrade, like so many technological things, didn't go as planned. So thankfully, we have an incredible IT staff that has been holding the vendors' feet to the fire in trying to get the issues or bugs worked out of that latest upgrade in the Track It program. And once they do, we can move on, hopefully, to the next step of migrating to a more online type of service. Unfortunately, right now, we're not there. And because of having to work out the bugs in Track It first, and then migrating to, and it's not like you just flip a switch and all of a sudden you're in a virtual environment or a remote environment or an online environment. There's training involved. There's it's not, as easy as just flipping a switch. So we have, way before this, we've been for several months working towards that goal of doing online permit applications and online plans review. But we've had some obstacles, and we're overcoming them with great help from our IT staff. So I don't know if there's any other specific question that I can answer.
I do. Would you be able to walk us through, for example, for the residents that have asked me these questions, for example, currently, if someone has an emergency in their home and it requires some sort of a repair or a replacement of something that requires a permit, what should we instruct them to do?
Yeah, and in the order, when I closed, when I transitioned to a virtual town hall, we laid out that scenario, right? Because we can't control that. That's bound to happen, that somebody's going to have an emergency. So we gave guidance on what residents can do. And I understand a lot of people may not go to our website, but we put it out on social media. We put it out on our website. But what the building official has authorized that, and it's similar to things that happen over the holidays or things that may happen over a weekend. Any given moment over a weekend, your air conditioning can go out and you need to replace it. You can go ahead and replace it. The mandate is on the next business day that we're open, they needed to come in to apply for a permit. So in this case, our next business day, as we're right now on our schedule now, our next business day is April 13th. So we'll see if that holds true or if things need to be extended. But so if somebody had an emergency repair of any kind, they can move forward with completing that repair or that replacement. And then on the next day, business day that we are open, they need to come in and submit the permit application for that work.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And just to clarify, it was my understanding, and I want to make sure the residents understand that as well, any of these repairs that require an inspection as part of the repair, that inspection is now in the hands of the homeowner. Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that they have to contract an industry professional that can certify that that repair has been done properly, or that item that they have installed is installed properly, and that needs to be presented when they come into town hall to request the permit, correct?
Yes, and that doesn't only apply to emergency repairs. It applies to really any project that's ongoing now. Our building official gave that latitude in those orders that we put out, whatever it was, a week ago today. He gave that latitude for homeowners that had existing projects ongoing, as well as any emergency repairs that for inspection purposes. In other words, so that their project doesn't get bogged down because they're waiting for an inspection. The building official, who's done a great job in this, and they've really handled resident inquiries. They've really, whether it's been phone calls or emails, but what he authorized was for certifications from professionals, right? So if there's an inspection that's due, the homeowner or the property owner can request that certification be done by an industry professional that certifies that it was done correctly and it was done according to the code.
Perfect. So any ongoing construction project right now, if you're in the middle of doing your roof, or if for whatever reason you're in the middle of a construction project, you need to contract an industry professional to come and perform that inspection for you. Another question that we discussed during...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I also want to say, if anybody has any doubt, if they're unsure, if they're not sure if their project this applies to or what have you, they can call us at our main number, because it's being answered, and that was part of the transition to a virtual town hall. That our main number, 305-364-6100, is being answered during normal business hours as if we were here. And in addition, if it's a building department issue, they can email. If our resident or our contractor finds it easier to do, they can email building department, all spelled out. So building department at miamilakes-fl.gov. And that email is a group email that goes to about 4 or 5 people, and they will get an answer within minutes. And they're going to get the right answer. They're going to get guidance on exactly what they need to do to make sure their project keeps moving.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Manager. As far as the ability to review plans virtually, I know that there are some municipalities that have transitioned into that. We are not able to do that right now, and we won't be able to do that for an extended period of time. That's not something that we're going to be able to do within these 2 weeks that we are performing virtual services.
That's correct. I mean, if all had gone smooth with that transition to track it, there may be an outside chance that we would have been there by now. So it's something that we've been working on for months. I know that there's other municipalities that have taken that step to the technologically, and they're able to do it. But if they are able to do it, it's a new phenomenon in those cities. It's not like they've been doing it for 10 or 20 years and we're way behind the curve. So we were moving in that direction, and the hiccup was in that upgrade from the previous version of Track It to the latest version, and we're working through those obstacles. But once we do, then we can continue down the path of making sure that we'll be able to do the review of plans and the submittal of permit applications electronic.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Now, one of the other questions that I had was, moving forward, what would trigger us to either stay closed or reopen? That's one of the questions that I've been asked that I don't really have an answer to. I know that April 13th is the date that we have to resume operations. Under what scenarios would we continue to keep Town Hall closed, and under what scenarios would we find ourselves able to reopen?
Well, it's funny. I make the parallel or the correlation to a comment that I heard Dr. Fauci, that now he's kind of like a rock star. He's everybody knows who he is because he's the medical expert on the White House on the White House team. But one of the things that he was asked was about almost like imposing timelines on, hey, can we go back by Easter? Can we go back by this time or that time? And his comment was very, very wise. And his reply to that was, we don't dictate the timeline, the virus dictates the timeline. And there's some truth to that, even at our level. It's not only at the national or the medical level, even at our level. What we are going to do, I don't want to force a return and put our people and our residents in danger. All right. So if the virus is still as much a threat come next week or midweek next week, when we start reevaluating whether the 13th is a viable reopen date, if the virus is still as much a threat as it is today and as it was last week, then we're going to probably extend the closure, and we're going to start moving towards seeing what, even if there are, because we did the closure, and we'll see if there are some things that we can do remotely, but there's no guarantee of that. I think that the things that the building department and a lot of our departments, did with relation to the construction industry, I think that they've done a great job with what we have to work with, which is that threat of the virus. And so really the virus will dictate whether we're able to reopen on the 13th or whether we have to extend. I set that date of the 13th reopen because I didn't want it to be open-ended. I didn't want it to be till further notice. I didn't want it, just to be a blank check. I wanted to have a clear-cut reevaluation time period where it forces us to look at it, ask ourselves the hard questions about the progression of the virus, and see what measures we need to take.
Thank you, and I completely understand that the virus is out of our control, sadly. But is there maybe like a trigger point that you thought of how many cases, perhaps if the number goes above a certain amount of cases, or if we finally start to see a decline in cases? Is there like an action plan that you've been working on, or perhaps that other municipalities have implemented where, there's certain numbers will trigger certain events?
I don't have any artificial set benchmarks. I think that there's this virus, it's a novel virus, as we've continuously heard. So it's a new animal, it's a new disease. We're learning as we go with how this disease works, right? If it were something else, like an influenza outbreak, we had a lot more data and a lot more of a track record to be able to predict better. But even if you look at the medical models, they vary almost day to day. And a lot of it, you have even nationwide, the numbers that they keep talking about of potential deaths. They talk about, if we do everything right, that it could be 150 to 200,000 people die. And if we don't, it could be, 1 million or 2. So the disparity in those numbers is incredible. So I don't think that even the medical professionals know enough about the modeling of where this virus is going, and so much depends on what all of us as residents do to do our part, because I think that's the most important part. We're the only ones that can help stem this. So I don't have any benchmark that I could tell you, okay, when we have X number, when we have 25 cases, or when we get to 50 cases, because I don't know what that means. That to me doesn't mean anything. So what we're planning to do is, in my opinion, do the smart thing, is continue following the medical guidance of the epidemiologists from the CDC and the county and state health departments. So we're going to continue to follow. And what we've seen lately is not a reversal. We haven't seen anything in any of the orders, in any of the guidance from the medical professionals. We have not seen anything loosening the grip, loosening the mandate for people to social distancing or gathering groups or anything of that. On the contrary, we've seen every day that a level of government, whether it be the federal, state, or the county level, issue new executive orders. Every single day, it's tightening the grip and making things more stringent as opposed to less stringent.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And I agree wholeheartedly. That's exactly what I see as well, which is why I think that our residents function better. I myself function better when I feel like there's a plan in place or when there's something that I can anticipate. Has the governor in any of the orders that he's issued said anything about municipalities, about local governments, about municipal functions such as, building? I know that construction is still considered an essential business and permitting is part of that necessity, right? To fill that. It's kind of like a supporting service for the construction industry. So is there have we received any guidance from the governor's office with regards to what we should be doing as municipalities with our municipal buildings and employees?
They have not said one way or the other. They're leaving that decision of our town employees, the determination of whether, first of all, whether they can do the lion's share of their duties remotely. So that keeps the government up and running, and I think we're at that point. But they have not said government employees have to stay home or have to go to work. They've left that decision-making up to the local government. Now, they keep talking about essential employees. The majority of the essential employees in a situation like what we have now are in the area of public safety and healthcare. So like the public hospitals and even the private hospitals, all of those are without a doubt essential employees. And then anything that supports that, right? The gasoline stations to provide gas so that those essential employees can get to work, the food providers, whether they be prepared food like restaurants with takeout or they be supermarkets, all of those businesses, really the only reason that they've become essential is to make sure that the essential employees can get to work. And obviously we need food, right? So the rest of us to be home and working remotely, we need to be able to still access the most essential things of life, right?
I totally agree. I know that there's a few businesses that are still on that essential list, some of which have to do with real estate services, with title services, attorneys, accountants, and the like. And that's why I was wondering if there was any guidance in that list of essential businesses with regards to municipal functions.
No, and really the way those, the hierarchy, the food chain, the federal government lays down mandates or declarations, and everybody below them can't do any less. They can do more, but they can't do less. And then the state, if they lay down a mandate or a declaration, the counties and the cities can't do less, they can do more. And the same holds when the county issues a declaration. We could not do less than what the county declares or anybody above us in the hierarchy. We can only do something more stringent. Now, with regard to the construction industry, and actually there was a very interesting article that came out yesterday that one of the largest home builders here in South Florida, he had, I think on 2 of his sites, he had some of the workers there that that ended up testing positive. So construction sites in and of themselves, while they are such an important part of our economy, but they are also really a hotbed because everybody's working close by, they're interacting. And I think that he mentioned in the article that in one of his sites, he normally has like 200 to 300 people working. So it's a large project that they're working on. And I think he only has like 15 or 20 on there now. So he dramatically scaled it back. And he's actually, he made a plea to the construction industry as a whole. They haven't bought on, but they you know, but that seems to be the you know, it seems to be the trend. Everybody's reluctant because of the dramatic impact, right? Because
correct. And I'm aware that most places that are still allowed to be open, most industries that are considered essential have been limited, right? So you can't have the same amount of staff members that you used to have in one space. You're limited to potentially, you know, only having 10. So that's why I was wondering if perhaps our building department with the skeleton crew could, you know, review some plans or maybe issue some permits, maybe not within this first order up, you know, that takes us to April 13th, but if we're forced to extend it for whatever reason, and some of the data indicates that this may last another 30 days or another 60 days. They don't really know when it's going to peak and then when we're finally going to be on the descending side of the curve. If that happens and if we're forced to remain closed for an extended period of time, would we consider, I mean, I don't know if my colleagues want to, you know, speak in regards to this, but can we consider perhaps having a skeleton crew in, you know, some of the more important departments, because we are allowed to have 10 individuals in one place. So is that something that you would consider?
But yeah, I mean, if we have to extend this past the 13th or past the 12th, we'll look and see what things we can do. But here's the thing, I'm reluctant to expose my staff to more people. So that's going to be the quagmire there, is how do I do it without exposing them to people? And so we're going to take a good hard look, and if there's a way that we can do at least something.
Yes, there are other municipalities that we can look into that have, you know, closed their lobbies and aren't allowing walk-in from the public, but they do have the departments working inside the building and still kind of performing more essential functions. And I agree, if we could all stay home, that would be something that I would totally be in favor of if we didn't need certain things to move forward. But I know that, you know, just like the people in the grocery stores and the gas stations and, you know, the building that I'm working in, you know, most people are here working because we're considered essential. You know, we don't want to come to work and we would much rather stay home and stay safer. That would be ideal if that were the case. But some of us are needed. And I think that there are some areas in Town Hall that could work, that could function safely with, you know, with social distancing, perhaps with some PPE and without contact with the public. I think that we can make some of that work.
We'll take a look at it. I don't guarantee or promise anything, but we're continuously evaluating what we can do, and we're trying to do as much as we can without endangering our people. Because if you have, I mean, already all of us, right? Because we all have to eat. So already we're being exposed to the folks that deliver us food, prepared food, where we get exposed when we go to Publix. So if you have 10 exposures, the likelihood of you getting or contracting the virus is greater than if you only have one. And if you have 10, it's less than if you get exposed to 100 people. So everything in this whole dynamic, the strategy in this whole thing is, while we probably can never, ever take, unless somebody just gets like Chris Cuomo, who's stuck in his basement, unless you do something like that and basically imprison somebody, it's mitigation, right? It's risk, mitigation. So you're just trying to limit as much as possible. And I don't want to add or pile on to the exposures that all of us already have to take, but I'm going to look and see what can we do. And we're continuously evaluating it, right? My executive staff, we have Zoom meetings, multiple times a week. All of our staffs are meeting via Zoom and telephonic, and We now use Microsoft Teams, which is the new dynamic, a new technological advance that we have in the latest version of Office and Microsoft Windows. And so we're using those methods to continue to provide service to our residents. The one area that has been more difficult to accomplish as much as we'd like was in the building department. But I'll promise you that we will continue to take a look at it and see if there are things, without endangering our staff, if there are things that we can do to help the construction along. But I wouldn't be surprised if construction projects are on the chopping block sometime soon. And but we're going to continue to take a look at it. And
it's very possible, Sally.
I'm not saying like if I know anything, but I just see that the governor, the president, the county mayor, they just continue to squeeze and squeeze more and squeeze a little more. Just recently, a day or two ago, they closed down adult daycare, right, which had been allowed before. So as that trend continues, I wouldn't be surprised if construction eventually gets on that hit list.
It is very possible. And one of the things that I read in the chronology that you sent us was that there's been a plexiglass installed in the building department. I haven't been to town hall, so I haven't seen it. Can you explain to me where that's located and what it looks like?
Yeah, one of the measures when we had not closed down yet, when we had not transitioned to a virtual town hall, the greatest level of exposure was our permit counter, where contractors or residents come in to apply for their permits, submit plans, and there was no separation whatsoever. It's just a counter, so over a desk, people, and at the beginning, people, now it's becoming more and more every day part of our new normal, right? The paradigm now is you don't hug, you don't kiss, you don't shake hands. But at that time, 2 to 3 weeks ago, it wasn't so yet, right? So people were still reaching across the counter, so what we did is we put up a plexiglass at the counter to allow, with a little slot there. So there was still a communication. It's obviously clear, it's see-through. So any contractor or resident that was coming in to speak with the building department was able to complete their business, but with a physical barrier that in case anybody sneezed or coughed or spit or whatever, there's a physical barrier that was giving some level of protection to our staff. But obviously they still had to hand over plans that they had just manoseado, in the car. And so there's a lot of points of potential exposure. We were just trying to see what we can do to limit some of that. And
that's a wonderful addition. I commend you for that, installing that, because I in the past, when I've been in there, I've always thought, this is very open. Usually there's something that divides, the clerks from the residents walking in, from the guests. So I think that's a wonderful, wonderful addition. So perhaps moving forward, if they have the proper, gloves, then at least they're not exposed to, anything that's in the air. That's wonderful. So have you considered or have you thought at all of what would trigger us to a complete shutdown? Because there are some residents that have actually requested or are concerned and would like to see a mandatory stay-at-home order where there aren't any people on the street, there aren't any restaurants open, no fast food, no pickup, no curbside. They would like to see that. Is that something that you've considered at any point?
Do they have a stockpile of food at home that's going to hold them over for 2 months?
They actually do. They prepared very well when they thought that this was going to be long-term. And yes, they're concerned about, how the restaurants are preparing food, the fact that people come and go to the restaurants to pick up food. I am not in favor now, nor have I ever been in favor of a full shutdown. I think that the economic impacts of this crisis are going to be felt for many, many years to come. So I'm not personally in favor of that, but I was just wondering if you've considered that at any point.
Not at this point, no. I think that the essentials of life, food, gasoline to buy your food, all of the things that are on the drawing board. Now, there are some things that are exempted out that probably could get tweaked, like what I mentioned a little while ago, like the construction industry. But ultimately, I think that I don't foresee us being able to transition to a full shutdown where nobody moves because people got to eat.
Correct. I agree. I know that the supermarkets will probably be one of those industries that will never be able to shut down, nor will the pharmacies. Fast food and restaurants are a little bit different, but if people are on the street and they're exposed at the supermarket, it doesn't really seem like it's very different to go and pick up takeout. Someone's touching your bag, someone's touching your items. It's impossible to stay in a glass bubble. It doesn't look to me like the construction industry is going to stop. I mean, I know that the governor wants to continue these infrastructure projects, and I'm not sure that will reach a point where it happens. But it was very important for me that we have this conversation as a group, because we are all subject to the Florida Sunshine Law. We can't talk to one another on an individual basis. I wanted to gather and hear the thoughts of my colleagues and share with you, what the residents were saying, and what, pick your brain a little bit on how you plan to move forward. So I thank you very much for
funny with the regard to the governor, and originally he was completely reluctant to do any kind of safer at home or stay at home order. He finally gave an inch when he did the Palm Beach, Broward, Dade, and Monroe stay at home order, and it wasn't 24 or 48 hours later that he ended up going to the statewide. So just because the governor is expressing, I would like to do this and not that, like I said, the virus dictates a lot of the moves that we're making, and the changes and the development and how this thing is changing is dictating a lot of the decision making that we're doing.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, and I hope that this conversation helps us to put together an action plan and brainstorm some things that maybe are a little bit outside of the box. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, you're muted.
Council, anyone else want to chime in? I'm going to go around. Just shake your head. Let me know if you want to chime in or not. Councilman Dieguez, I'm going to go in order that I see you on the screen. Councilman Dieguez? No. Councilman Collazo? No. Vice Mayor? Councilman Alvarez? Councilman Alvarez wants to speak. Germán, please unmute him.
To the manager, I just wanted to just encourage. I think we've done a phenomenal job in communications and putting that information out there to our residents. One of the things that I encourage us to do is, like, you may have to repeat some of these posts that have been posted maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and there's been some changes. There might have been some residents that might have missed a post. One that I think is important to possibly maybe continue maybe essential and non-essential. What's the difference between essential and non-essential? That question can pose as well. I know what it is, but I think like the last time that I saw something like that posted was 6 days ago. So maybe some of this really important information occurring as far as putting in your different, also updating your Q&As and that out there as well. As we know, we have to err on the side of compassion, and we're basically flying the plane while we're building. There's still a lot that we're learning as we go along. So maybe just like I'm saying, continuous just updates on what you're hearing from Tallahassee, from the governor's office, and that are coming down the pipe. That's kind of what I just wanted to share.
No, that's a good point. And it goes to what we were just talking about, what I was just talking about with Councilmember Ruano, which is that the parameters of the declarations and the emergency orders, they keep squeezing. So what used to be allowed just a couple days ago may be, like, for instance, the adult daycares. The adult daycares, until just a couple days ago, it was essential service. It was allowed to be open. So then it changed. So that's a great suggestion, and we'll try and do that and put like a laundry list of all the things that are allowed and all the things that are ordered to be closed.
Thank you, Councilman Alvarez. Councilman Rodriguez. No, so I'll close it out real quick. I think the toughest, just want to chime in just with my colleagues. I've been in touch with the manager every single day. I go to City Hall every day. As I've always go every day, but specifically when this issue arose and I've been in touch, I literally call the manager from 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, constantly asking questions. Him and I were on a call yesterday, on a national call with the White House, directly with Dr. Fauci and Larry Kudlow. 600 other local officials were on that call. And I can tell you, one of the toughest things that everybody keeps repeating is that this is a novel virus, meaning not seen before. So that's one of the toughest things, how to forecast that, how to forecast plans. And one thing Dr. Fauci kept reiterating to us local officials was specifically social distancing. Continuously to enforce social distancing in our community to flatten the curve. But that was the toughest things. I mean, he and the other folks that are on the call, it was hard for them to gauge where we're going to go because it has never been seen before, right? I mean, at one point, a couple of weeks ago, nobody thought we'd be in this position. And now, going forward, we don't know where exactly we'll be. We do know April 30th is a date here in Florida, but that goalpost just keeps moving. So I know that's one of the toughest parts to gauge it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the building department after this with my new business item because I have a specific motion that I want to add in when my item comes up. But yeah, that's where we're at, and that's the toughest part to talk to our residents. I think the one thing the manager told me, and I keep hearing from elected officials throughout the nation, is transparency with our residents, right? Continuously putting out the message, putting everything that we hear from the moment we know that there's one case to the moment we know, I think to right now, we just found out, I think we're up to 14 cases in Miami Lakes. Just put out constantly information, talk to your folks, social distancing, and we'll keep moving from there. But that's the toughest part. When we have hurricanes, I had an interview with Common Edge, which is a national nonprofit, yesterday, and they specifically said it. Look, Florida is very well prepared. You're all very well prepared when it comes to hurricanes, but something novel like this that hasn't been seen before is very difficult to do. But I highly recommend just stay in contact with the manager every day. I talk to him 3, 4, 5 times every single day. So definitely talk to him because he's in phone calls. I receive phone calls and I let him know just so he can disseminate the information all the time. But thank you guys for bringing this up. I do have a new business item as we move on to item 14B. It was talked about earlier by Roman Garcia, the chair of the Sports Hall of Fame. Mike Uspensky is a great Miami Laker, a legend in this area. He not only was a great coach, but more importantly, he was an amazing mentor to hundreds of kids in our community. And he right now is in a very difficult health position. Jim Hamilton, I've been working with Jim Hamilton and the committee on this. So I definitely want to make sure we recognize him as soon as possible tonight, just to make it official that we move forward and induct Mike Uspensky into the Miami Lakes Sports Hall of Fame. This is somebody who I met when I knocked on his door, him and his wife Carolyn's door, back in 2016, and I actually see them every single Sunday. They hang out with me almost every Sunday, and we have a chance to chat. But yeah, incredible human being. So I definitely want to make a motion to officially induct Miami Lakes legend and an incredible human being, Mike Uspensky, Coach Mike Uspensky, into the Miami Lakes Sports Hall of Fame.
I'll second.
Council, any discussions? You can raise your hand, or you want me to go around? Councilman Collazo, then wait. I know Councilman Collazo, you want to speak, so I'll go to you. But Councilman Morano, anything on this? No. Councilman Diegues, anything on this? Councilman Rodriguez, Councilman Alvarez, Vice Mayor. All right, it's Councilman Collazo in closing.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I was just seconding the motion.
Thank you, Councilman Collazo, and I'm sure you've heard of Mike Uspensky being the one Trojan on the city council, somebody who went to HML. You know, you could definitely appreciate everything he did for our community. With that being said, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you guys for honoring Coach Uspensky. So I wanted to bring up item 14C for discussion. I know I've talked to the manager about him. He had some thoughts about this. I don't know if you guys did your briefing with the manager or not, but I know he had some thoughts about this. I've heard from residents that they would like to see us work with him. Obviously, what that looks like, I would love to hear from you all. I know people are going through a very, very, very tough situation in terms of their finances. You know, the world's been turned upside down. Jobs are being lost every day. Unemployment claims in Florida are going up every single day. So, you know, maybe folks are having a difficult time with code. They get a notice to pressure wash their roofs. They get these types of things. I don't know if we should be doing that stuff right now. Maybe those are minor things that we can work with people, or maybe put more of an onus to the larger things. But just to get the discussion going, I'll make a motion to direct the manager to come back to us with recommendations on code enforcement back to us at our April 21st council meeting. Seconded by Councilman Collazo and Councilman Rodriguez. We'll go around again, starting with Councilwoman Serrano. You want to speak on this one?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I've seen some chatter on Facebook where the residents feel a little bit accosted, I guess, because they're very pressured, they're under a lot of stress, and receiving code violations or notices is just exacerbating this whole quarantine or safer at home situation. I would ask the manager when reviewing this that to please consider quality of life issues, nuisances that directly affect your neighbor. I think that those kinds of violations should still be addressed. Perhaps, you know, loud music or, you know, intrusive lighting, things of that nature. If it's something that doesn't really, you know, need to be addressed immediately, I'm perfectly okay with relaxing them. I don't want to overburden our residents, but in the event that it's something that's really causing harm to a neighbor or stress or unnecessary stress to a neighbor, I'd like us to still be able to address those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Serrano. And guys, I apologize. I'm just going around with the screen on here, and I have Councilman Villegas next and Councilman Collazo.
I'm sorry, if I may, one more question. I know that when I had my briefing with the manager, we discussed him looking into whether or not we are legally allowed to relax code or whether we are legally allowed to not enforce our code. Were you able to look into that, Mr. Manager?
We have not concluded our research as to what we believe we can and cannot do. And some of it may be what we should or should not do, right? So, and there's ways of relaxing without just completely ignoring. So we're looking at the various different angles and strategies that we can use. And for instance, what would be also considering what would be the burden on the homeowner, right? Is it something that's going to be something that the homeowner, like for instance, something as simple as bringing in the trash can and not leaving it on the sidewalk? That's something that could take the homeowner 3 seconds. It's not a burden. That shouldn't be another stressor on the homeowner. So those kind of things versus what, you know, something that they'd have to get a contractor and spend, you know, thousands of dollars on. Those are the kind of distinctions that maybe we could take a look at, and how can we go about enforcing, but laxly enforcing, or with compassion.
Perhaps giving homeowners more time with regards to violations that have a financial impact. I know that a lot of our residents are home and they're not receiving any income. They're unable to work. So maybe relaxing, you know, the necessity to pay a fine on the spot. Also, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that anything that relates to the Florida building code, we don't have the ability to relax that, right? We're not authorized to do that.
Yeah, correct. The town code versus the Florida building code are two separate things. The Florida building code, it is what it is. We no relaxing that because those, you know, is what the mayor may have been referring to when he wrote the item, which is those are really public safety items, right? Electrical, the structure, the strength of a building, you know, the sturdiness. Those are public safety issues. But the one thing I can tell you, and you know, the process with code enforcement. When we go out there, some people are under the misconception. Whenever the inspector goes out there, right away it's fine, and it's not even close to be that. So, first time an inspector goes and sees something, they give them a courtesy notice. So the courtesy notice, obviously, there's no financial impact. It's just a heads up. Hey, by the way, you know, this is wrong with your house. The second step in the whole process is a warning. Yeah, the warning is still not a fine. It's not until there's lack of compliance, there's no progress whatsoever on behalf of the homeowner. The third step is when a fine is imposed. And I could tell you, because I've seen it over and over again, our inspectors, and they work for the Mike Mesa. He does a great job with this, and Lourdes Rodriguez in building does a job, and Lourdes Sosa, the whole team there does a great job. What they do, they work and bend over backwards for our residents. So as long as a resident is taking steps towards compliance, even if they are baby steps, they could be the most minimal thing. Even if they call and they say, look, I'm working, but it's going to take me a couple more months to get the money together. I'm trying to, they work with them and they don't hit them with the fine. But the ones that people get the notice, they ignore the notice, don't call the inspector, don't do anything. They get the warning, they don't do anything, they don't call the inspector, they don't make contact, but they get a fine. Those that usually is not until they get a notice that they have to show up for a hearing that they finally show up, and then they say, hey, what's going on with this? So I can tell you, and my message here, hopefully there's a lot of residents listening to it. If you ever get a courtesy or a warning, please reach out to the inspector. They will bend over backwards to help you find the right solution that works for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Councilwoman Morano. Mr. Attorney, just an FYI, it might be easy when you do the research, just check out St. Petersburg, Tampa, and Pinellas County as to what they did about a week ago. Just an FYI. Councilman Dieguez? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm going to take a slightly contrarian view here and just point out, in addition to what the manager stated, that we do have a code department that works with our residents, not against them. They do perform, though, an important function in our town, right? Part of what makes Miami Lakes unique and what makes us the beautiful town that we all want to live in, move to, etc., is that we do have certain standards that we are expected to abide by. I obviously do not want to add to the stress imposed on residents during this difficult time. I don't think any of us do, least of all our code officers. And as the manager pointed out, our code process always begins with a courtesy notice. There's no instant fine, and they are always willing to work with you on the violation that they state exists. So along those lines, I spoke with the manager today about potential solutions, and one of them that we thought about was maybe to still allow courtesy notices to go out, because of course residents need to know what the code says so that they can be compliant. So it's kind of, in my opinion, works against us if we don't let them know, hey, there's something that violates the code. So at least for informational purposes, allow the courtesy notice to go out. Of course, perhaps even add a sticker though that says that that there are no or that this is not a fine, something that makes it much clearer. And secondly, that the time periods for compliance are told until after the Miami Lakes emergency declaration is rescinded. So in that way, you give people the peace of mind that they don't have to address these non-threatening items during the emergency. And then secondly, that the time periods, I forget how many days it is, that the time periods under our code, they don't begin to run until then. So they basically have extra time in which to comply. So I hope, Mr. Manager, that you will explore something along those lines that still allows our code enforcement department to carry out the function that helps to maintain Miami Lakes to the standard that we expect, but at the same time continues our tradition of being fair and not punitive with our code enforcement. So I just wanted to give my thoughts to the manager on that I'd like to see him explore something in that direction. I don't know what happened in St. Petersburg and Tampa, but perhaps something like along what they did, if it makes sense with what we want to do, can also be adopted. So those are my thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Dieguez, and great ideas also as well. Councilman Collazo.
In trying to be brief, I'm just going to make my comments. Both Marilyn and Josh, Councilwoman Morano and Councilmember Dieguez highlighted both of the things. I wanted to make sure that we had a fair process, that we had a process that took into consideration what we were going through, but at the same time upheld the standards that we know are the brand Miami Lakes. And right now it's not a time to be punitive to our residents and be fair and open-minded. And I think both of their comments simply put that, and I think that's enough direction, at least from my perspective, to the manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Collazo. Vice Mayor?
I think Councilman Collazo and the others covered it. There's a lot of stuff that can be done that are simple, that doesn't affect the financial pocket of the resident. My concern is if we do a complete shutdown where we don't allow landscape companies coming in, and for them to do their work, that our yards or people's yards are going to start to grow and start to get disheveled. And so those are the kind of things that concern me in reference to the look of Miami Lakes and what Miami Lakes stands for in reference to our appearance. In reference to the large scale stuff, I completely agree. There's times that we need to hold back, on the mold on the roof and the driveways and stuff like that. But if we see something that needs to be addressed, that could be something simple as a garbage can. I agree. People need to bring in their garbage can, and we need to try to keep up the aesthetics of Miami Lakes as much as possible. If they have a problem, they need to call us and let us know. Like the manager said, we let them have baby steps. And we've gone through this code enforcement thing in the last couple of months, being the manager with other issues. And speaking to Mike Mess, I even had an item on the agenda to the last council meeting to increase the time that we give them. So the leniency is there. All they got to do is contact us. But I agree. We need to tweak it a little bit to make people's life a little bit easier during this time.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilman Alvarez? Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez?
No, I'm just want to say I'm in agreement with everything that my colleagues have said. I think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. Mr. Manager, do you have sufficient direction? You have all the feedback from the entire council. You're definitely understanding which direction you want to go in, correct?
Yeah, I'll take a look at it and I'll come back with a recommendation at the April 21st meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I believe there was a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Council. We're moving on to the next item, which was the item on the building department, and I'll go as fast as I can. So we're definitely ahead of the curve when it comes to technology in regards to our city council, right? Every city around the nation was looking at us on how to do these meetings, working with Gina, working with IT. We got to help our building department in terms of giving them the tools to get to where they need to be. And it's not a new idea now. There's a lot of cities throughout the nation moving to remote video inspections, remote plan reviews. You have cities like the city of North Las Vegas does residential video. It has a residential video inspection program, inspects a bunch of stuff via Skype. We already have Zoom, so to me, these things shouldn't be that difficult. Most folks that submit things to our building department, a lot of them do it electronically now. They send in their plans and stuff like that. We should be able to review those plans easily. I mean, working with our IT department, and get things expedited and moving while keeping our folks safe and making sure that we do our part to flatten the curve. So I don't want to reinvent the wheel because it's already been invented for us, right? The same way that other cities have followed us in our lead. The city of Tucson does the same thing. They do remote video inspections. They require the folks to have a certain, to use FaceTime or Google Duo, what they use. So stuff like that, it's already happening around the nation. So why not us? And I think that is where I'm having, and I understand that technology and maybe there's some hiccups in the building department with technology, but we need to give them, I believe, the tools. So simply to get this stuff done, because this looks like, I know they're talking about April 30th. I know we have our date of April 13th, but what it looks like that it'll get extended, right? I mean, that is not something, maybe, I think it's major, it's going to happen, right? That it's not going to be April 13th. We have to make sure that our workforce is productive and they have the tools and they have the proper training. So I really believe that they should be doing what these other cities are doing, right? There's no reason why not. The same way we used to tell other cities, hey, there's no reason why your residents shouldn't be commenting from anywhere. Now everybody's doing it. The same here. So I simply just want to make a motion directing our town manager to have our IT department specifically just work with our building department and just get this done. Get done, you know, from reviewing plans to if there's ways to do remote inspections via Skype. The way that they do it in North Las Vegas is that not only do they do it via video, and the inspector, look, I'll read off the city, you schedule in North Las Vegas, how they do it, they schedule a remote video inspection via Appointment Plus. The city inspector will initiate a Skype call to the customer. Inspector will direct the customer to send video images of the work to be inspected. So they do a walkthrough, and also they're required to send the work to be inspected. And then the inspections results after they're reviewed are sent in. So it's being done around the nation. So our IT department's amazing. Our staff's doing good, but we have to give them the tools because we got to make sure that people that want to invest in our community, from residents who are doing building their homes, what may not, or doing some in addition to their house or fixing up their house, or somebody wants to fix their business, that they have that ability. So I just want to make a motion to direct our town manager to have our IT department specifically work with our building department to ensure that there's remote plan reviews and remote inspections where those abilities are afforded.
I'll second.
There's a second by Councilman Collazo and Councilman Rodriguez. We'll go around. Again, just shake your head if you don't want to speak, but I'll go around. Councilwoman Ruano. She's on. Councilwoman, you're on mute.
My apologies. Thank you. Thank you so much. I was just saying that this is exactly what I was talking about before. Moving forward, if we're going to remain in a shutdown mode in town hall, we need to be able to have the residents access us. It's important. We can't just, stop all the progress, stop building, stop installing things. It's not feasible. I'm in full agreement with you that perhaps I'm not quite there yet with maybe a virtual inspection, but it's definitely an option maybe for moments like this. Is there a timeline? Because I know that when I spoke to the attorney and the manager at my briefing, they told me that we were still a ways away from being able to do something like this. Do we think that we can implement something like this for this particular COVID-19 crisis, or would this be unfortunately implemented for perhaps a future event?
So if the question is to me, personally, I absolutely believe that it can be done simply by reaching out to the cities that are already doing it. Just see how they're doing it. I know they've been having hiccups. I know our town manager might have a different opinion, but I think in moments like this, you see the best come out of people, and when people are challenged to provide a service, usually you see the best of that. So I have complete faith in our town manager and our T department and our building department that they can get this done relatively quickly and provide this now, not tomorrow, based on what other cities are doing. Mr. Manager.
So there's one set of guidelines when you think something's going to be shut down for a 2-week period, you approach it in a different way than if you think it's going to be shut down for a 4 or 5 week period. Right? So I've already asked our building director in conjunction with our deputy town manager to start looking that if we need to extend the current state of a virtual town hall and remotely, that what are the things to start looking at? Are there things that we can do from afar without endangering our staff? That's kind of like my my line in the sand is I don't want to put our staff in danger. So, and that's kind of ambiguous. So I'm not really sure what that means, but I to look at any modification or any change, and I'm going to ask myself, does this put our staff in danger? And does it, compromise their safety? So I've already asked them throughout this meeting, I've asked them now to start looking at a plan in the event that we need to extend this, let's say through the end of April or something to that effect. So we're already going to be looking and working on it. And, so we'll take a look at it. If it was going to be ending next week, then it would be a moot point, right? If we were going to be ending and it'd be another week of shutdown, it didn't matter. But if it looks like what it looks like, which is going to be longer, to look and see, are there some things more than what we're already doing? Because, by the way, the is not shut down. They are doing things. They are, allowing inspections, from the certifications, from the certified professionals. So there are things. The main thing that we're not allowing now is the middle of new permit applications and the review of plans. So I've asked them to start taking a look at it. I've asked Deputy Town Manager Tony Lopez and Building Official Mike Mesa to start coming up with a plan to see if there are things that we can do differently if in the event that we have to extend this through the end of
We discussed today, Mr. Manager, that City Hall had put in an order for protective gear for masks. Would it be possible for inspections to be conducted with the inspector wearing the proper protective equipment?
It's possible. It's possible. But here's the thing. Everybody and their mother, to put it bluntly, is asking for PPE. And if they have, if PPE is available from FEMA or the state and it's coming down, if they have the option to give it to the town of Miami Lakes for their building inspectors or their code inspectors, or they need to give it to the Coral Gables Fire Department for brave souls like the Vice Mayor, I think that we're going to lose on that one every day of the week.
Absolutely agree, as it should be.
Right. So that's the dynamic. So we're looking to see, first of all, is PPE, proper PPE is available. We don't want some, some Mickey Mouse thing that says, oh, we're N95 compliant. I want to make sure it's legit, right? So we want to make sure we can get PPE, and if we can, then we'll start looking to see if we were properly protected. Are there things that we can do to move this along if we have to be closed down to a lock?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in full support of your item. I think that this is one of the reasons why I called this meeting, or I asked for you guys to indulge me in this meeting, was to come up with innovative ideas like that in moving forward in the event that we are shut down for maybe a 2 or 3 month period, that we can still have our residents access those essential services like inspections in the building department. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ruano. Councilman Rodriguez? You need to speak? Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor, I think this is an excellent idea. I think it's not only something that will help our town during this pandemic period, but I think this is something that'll put us above and beyond other municipalities even after the pandemic. This is something that our building department could be innovators in the state of Florida, and I think it'll be fantastic. It's unfortunate that it's the result of a pandemic to the fact that we got to this point, but I think it could be a very positive outcome going forward. So I'm in full support of this item, and I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. Vice Mayor.
I just want to echo what the manager said. We don't want to endanger our staff by sending them out. I don't know if I'm there yet with the video inspections like Councilwoman Ruano is or said. but we definitely need to look and address other options to do that stuff. I mean, we do have all life safety information that can be done. That can be done is very simple. You can, in emergency repairs can be done without a permit. They come back and submit the permit afterwards, and they have 6 months to call for a final inspection. That's in our current code right now. So AC change out, sewer repair, electrical meters, those are the kind of essential stuff. If they have a leak in their roof, I don't think our building department's going to go after them and stop their work when they have a home emergency like that. But they do need to notify the town that this is happening, so that at least the town is aware of it. I don't think we need to let just people do all these emergency repairs without notice. I'd like to see some type of notice given to the town building department. But yeah, we do need to look at other options of inspections without endangering our inspectors and putting them into people's homes. Outdoor inspections are one thing, but once you go into people's homes during an outbreak like this, it's a different story. And the manager has a good point about having the proper equipment to go into a home.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We're on to Councilman Collazo.
Yeah, Mayor, and I'll be brief. Necessity is the mother of invention, and I'm in the health profession, probably in the front lines in one of the greatest hit areas, which is caring for our seniors. And we have become very innovative and very creative in how we take care of these very vulnerable populations. And realizing that this is not going to be days or weeks, that most likely this will be months, and we don't want to bring Town Hall to a grinding halt. I think we need to be innovators and start finding out creative ways that we can do this, and albeit safely. So I'm in complete support of looking at video technology, looking at third-party certifications for inspections, and looking at all these things that we are looking at to make sure that we don't come to a grinding halt. So completely in support of this idea, and applaud Councilwoman Morano and yourself for bringing forward these innovative solutions to make sure that we can continue servicing our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Collazo. Councilman Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say, excellent idea. Continue being innovative, forward thinkers, and thinking outside the box, and the possibilities are endless for this town.
Thank you, Councilman Alvarez. Councilman Dieguez. No? All right, with that said, thank you all. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. We're on to the next item, which I believe is the Vice Mayor's item.
So as you can see, we've been having some issues with the blasting in the last couple of days, and people calling me and posting it on social media of how destructive it's been, and the concerns they have for their families. So you have the agenda memo that I wrote, looking for some resolution on how we can either lower the blasting limits or stop it completely. And you heard what Mr. Pepe Diaz had to say, and I understand. And the governor coincidentally put out an order a day after my item went public, pushing for accelerated critical infrastructure projects throughout the state of Florida. I sent it to Lorenzo to pass it to you guys, so hopefully you received it. But it's very interesting. My concern is that we need to fully look at what is happening with this safer and stay-at-home order. I understand traffic is light, and the governor wants to push a lot of the projects through for traffic, but at the same time, it's putting a lot of undue stress on our parents, on our children that are home during this blasting time. So my motion is going to be simple. I motion that the mayor of Miami-Dade County or the governor of the state of Florida place a temporary moratorium on blasting in Northwest Dade County, areas less than 3 miles from residents. In areas that are 3 miles or less, from residents. And so that'll affect Northwest Dade. I don't want to stop blasting statewide. I don't want to stop blasting anywhere else where it's not affecting homes. But in our area, it is affecting our children who are home now, who are feeling the blast. They normally don't feel the blast there's no blasting on the weekends, and they're not feeling that. So there's been some stress, especially with educational stuff. And so I think we need to look at this motion seriously. And in 1 second. And adding to my motion, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk. I said within 3 miles of residents in Northwest Dade, and also the opportunity to have the blasting levels reduced to more than half of what they are today. If we can do that, I think that at least it'll start a conversation with our blasting partners. That's it, Mayor.
I'll make a motion just to discuss it. Council, I'll go around and then I'll close it. Councilman Rodriguez. I'll second it to discuss it. Councilman Rodriguez. Councilwoman Ruano.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I too have received multiple phone calls from residents. I think that what's happening right now, the difference is that most everyone is at home. So they are now allowed to feel the impacts of these blasts. Most residents spend the day at work and aren't home and don't understand how intense these blasts are. As far as the kids, sadly, they are used to these blasts. They feel them at school because our schools shake just as bad as our homes do. The learning environment is interrupted by these blasts. It's being now interrupted at home, but it's regularly interrupted at school. So I think that we've been exposed to more phone calls and more complaints because of that, because residents now have been able to experience firsthand when these blasts happen.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ruano. Councilman Collazo.
Yeah, at the beginning, I thought that was a very broad approach, and I thought in the beginning, I thought it was something that we were reaching out to during the state of emergency to close down all mines. I like some of the amendments. I received one at least through the email limiting the span. So I think it kind of addresses really the issues that's happening here in our own backyards. So I can completely support the motion as it's been amended here in the email we received.
Thank you, Councilman Collazo. Councilman Alvarez.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez, I have a question. Do you want the scope of this to be entire Northwest Miami-Dade, or will you be reconsidering to target just the town of Miami Lakes?
Oh, the rock mining in Northwest Miami-Dade is only one company right now, and that's affecting Miami Lakes. I'm not trying to stop rock mining anywhere else in the county or in the state of Florida. It's just what's affecting us directly in Miami Lakes, which is the closest mine just northwest of the town of Miami Lakes. But you know, again, I'm just limiting it to the residence area that is affecting Northwest Dade and Miami Lakes, which is the white rock blasting that's going on nearby.
Thank you. I was just asking because I'm not familiar if there are other quarries throughout Northwest Dade, and Northwest Dade is talking about a lot of space, a lot of area. So
right.
If you want to be specific to the one that we're targeting
well, I put in my motion, I put within a 3 mile radius of residence. So if there's another blasting area within a 3 mile radius, you know, we can look at that. Again, I'm sure we're going to get some pushback, and we'll have to look at what we can do. I'm looking for more of a solution than creating a problem. I want to bring some relief to the parents and to the residents of Miami Lakes. And you know, I don't think that blasting is essential right now. You know, and so we need to look at some options of what we can do. And if bringing them to the table to negotiate the blasting limits or how they're blasting, and you know, it's an option. But right now, I think we need to send a message to our mayor and to our governor to really look at at what's happening to our students and our families that are home feeling these blasts every day as they're doing homeschooling and the parents are working from home. I think Councilwoman Romano hit the nail on the head when she said that it's affecting, people are starting to feel it because they're home now and they understand what's happening. But I think if you want an amendment to just White Rock quarries, I don't want to isolate one quarry. I don't know how many more companies are out there in the area, but we put the 3-mile radius, and that could be lowered depending on what's recommended by our legal staff.
We are talking about one specific quarry. Is that correct? I'm not familiar with other quarries.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Are we specifically talking about one quarry?
Yeah, one quarry is all I'm aware of that's out there in Northwest State. That's the only one I'm aware of. I don't know of any other company that's blasting in the area. If anybody else is aware, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Alvarez. Councilman Dieguez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll be brief, but first and foremost, I want to thank our state partners, Brian Avila and State Senator Manny Diaz Jr. So again, Representative Avila and Senator Diaz Jr. finally were able to pass some legislation in Tallahassee to more accurately monitor the blast that we feel all the time. I constantly feel it every day, like many of our residents do, because I work out of the west side of town on a second story. So myself, and I know Councilwoman Morano, who's also on the second story out west there, also feels it on a daily basis. So I get it, and I want to thank them for their hard work on finally getting something done. It wasn't as far as we would have liked, but hey, baby steps. My concerns with what's being proposed today is that, again, I don't know what's going on beyond our borders. I only know what's going on in Palm Springs North and Miami Lakes. The other thing is when you say that you want to also address the issue of cutting the blasting limit in half, when we're having a meeting about the coronavirus in particular, and I understand the need for the moratorium, perhaps with more people being at home, including potentially veterans with PTSD and whatnot. I understand that, but I don't know if that maybe muddles the message a little bit when we're trying to throw in something that goes a bit further beyond what would be the period of the emergency, or at least if you could please, before I do say anything else, can you please once again clarify what it is that is being proposed? What is the context of saying let's reduce the blasting limit in half? Is that for the duration of the emergency? Is that just what we all agree is a long-term goal of ours? Or if you can please provide clarification, I would greatly appreciate it.
Mayor?
Yes, you have the floor, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Dieguez. For right now, it's for the duration of the state of emergency. It's something that we would like to see past the future, and really look at what's going on with blasting. And yes, the state senator Diaz and Representative Avila have done a phenomenal job. But we're still getting a lot of calls from our residents now, especially now that they're home feeling it. And I think that we really need to look at that our rock mining areas really need to look at some of their levels and look at what we can do to reduce that or stop it during the state of emergency, so that we can give people a little bit less stress. Now, I'm not throwing this in just casually under this Corona special call meeting. The effect of this blasting while people are home because they're isolated into their home for safer at home order is causing them another stress level. And that's the reason why I put it in there. It wasn't just to take advantage of the situation. It was to relieve some of the stress from our residents and the children. There's a lot of children that don't go to school in the area here that are starting to feel the blasting now because they don't go to school in this area. So those are residents that are calling me more concerned. So I think that's one of the aspects of this. Let's see what we can do to lower, stop it or lower their limits, temporarily. And it says temporary on the motion, and it did say temporary on the during the state of the emergency on my memo.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. And I haven't been able to look at the changes. I left my iPad, so I don't have it with me. So I was able to read some of the language. But through the chair to the town attorney, either Mr. Gastesi or Mr. Boella, how does the resolution currently read? Is it 3 miles of Miami Lakes, and either have a moratorium on blasting within 3 miles of the town, and alternatively, or alternatively, a reduction in the blasting level? Is that how it reads?
Councilman Dieguez, at this time, the resolution does not make any mention to the blasting levels. That was not originally considered in the resolution. It can be added, and that's part of the Vice Mayor's motion, so it can be added to the resolution and amended. With regards to the area, it's a 3-mile radius of any blasting site that is adjacent to a residential neighborhood. So if the radius of the query is within a 3-mile radius of a residential neighborhood, then we're asking the county, the resolution is very specific to the county, to add it to the emergency order as a non-essential business and to stop at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. And I apologize if I'm leaning close to the camera. The audio, for whatever reason of mine, is a little bit lower than usual. But Mr. Vice Mayor, I think you were going to add something.
Yeah, I also added in the motion to Northwest Dade to make it a little bit more regional, or less regional, excuse me, and make it a little bit more isolated to the effects in Miami Lakes. I guess other municipal bodies can take action as they see fit in their areas, but in Miami-Dade, in Northwest Dade, I think it's really having some effects, and that's my isolated area. I know that Councilman Alvarez had asked if we're really what the contingent or what the area is, and yes, we're looking at one mining company that's affecting Northwest Dade. I don't know of any others that are out there in this area that are within the 3-mile radius.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. And might I, at this time, just for purposes of clarification, offer an amendment, just to make it clear for the attorneys when they finalize this. And of course, you indicate if it's friendly or not. But I'd like to make an amendment just to specify that we are referring to mining activity within 3 miles of the town of Miami Lakes, just to be more specific. And in the alternative, if not, having a temporary cessation of blasting activities, and the alternative for them to reduce the frequency or the blasting level. That would be my proposed amendment for purposes of clarification.
No, I'll second that. It's already in the resolution, the second resolution that was sent out, saying the 3-mile radius, and I'm fine with the language, and I think that's perfect, and I'm happy to second that amendment.
So just on the amendment, since there was a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No. None opposed. The motion passes. We're back onto the main motion as amended. Vice Mayor, any further comments? If not, we will go to a vote.
No further comments.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes, Madam Clerk. The next item is Councilman Dieguez's item. Unfortunately, I'll be recusing myself because not only am I his item specifically talks about Miami Lakes restaurants and certain requirements. Not only am I a part owner, but I'm actually the operator of a restaurant here in town. So I'd rather not participate in something that I might have a potential conflict in. So, Mr. Vice Mayor, I will be stopping my video and muting my microphone and allowing you to run the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Go ahead, Councilman. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Councilman Rodriguez.
As you know, I will also need to be recusing myself as part owner of a restaurant in Miami Lakes.
No problem. Thank you, sir. Councilman Dieguez, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So just to briefly go over the genesis of this item. So my father, as many of you know, is 72 years old, and he's been after me nonstop about well, what are our restaurants doing? Are they wearing masks? Are they wearing gloves? And blah, blah, blah. And I explained, well, Dad, some of them are doing that, but some of them aren't. For example, I had gone to Haagen-Dazs not too long ago to grab a shake, which I probably shouldn't have, but I did. And they were not wearing a mask. So I did notice that. This past weekend, I went by CVS to pick up some Tylenol. And while waiting in line to be serviced by the cashier, I noticed that the gentleman had a face mask, but it was under his nose. So it was not being properly worn. And to add to that scenario, he was actually servicing a lady who was in her 70s. So taking my dad's words to heart, and given that we had called this special call meeting, the timing just seemed to make sense to go ahead and bring it up for discussion. So my motion and what I moved that the town manager do is to adopt rules that would require that grocery stores, pharmacies, and restaurants of all kinds must wear protective covering, I guess the way to put it. So it's not just a mask, because I understand that certain masks are not available, but wear protective face covering as well as gloves as part of their operations. And we would make that a requirement, not just a suggestion. So that would be one of the things that would be different. There was a new order that I received from our town manager coming from Mayor Jimenez that actually does start encouraging all employees, or rather businesses, to encourage their employees to wear masks, gloves, or other personal protective equipment. So we're just going a little bit further. I think this would be something that would give our senior population ease of mind. As far as how it would be enforced, I would argue it's the same as the social distancing requirement that we recently implemented. It would just be on if they see it, then at that point our police officers would step in, not so much to be punitive, but to educate them and inform them, hey, you need to start wearing this protective covering, as well as gloves. And, of course, if they had to go back again, then at that point it would escalate, perhaps to a fine of some sort. So that is the motion, and I hope to have your support. Thank you.
I'll second.
Councilman Collazo, you want to start the discussion?
Sure. No, I'm seconding it because, again, I'm actually in one of these sectors where since day one we have been covering. I know it's hard. I don't want to add anything onerous to our restaurateurs. Securing personal and protective equipment is very difficult. So I appreciate Councilman Dieguez being a little open-minded and flexible, and making sure that at a minimum there's some type of barrier between the person's face and their hands. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific type of mask, but just making sure that their mouth and hands are covered. And we know that by doing those things, we are preventing the virus, and restaurateurs and these other types of business are considered essential. So I just think we're adding another layer of protection to our residents without necessarily being overly burdensome to our small businesses and our operators. So I'm in support of this item. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councilwoman Ruano.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Dieguez, I fully understand where your concerns are coming from. I've received phone calls about this as well. And I myself have refrained from visiting some of these establishments because I don't feel that those that are handing me the food or in contact with my lunch or shake or coffee are wearing any protective equipment for that matter. I haven't seen them wearing anything. I had some concerns with this, one being where can they access this protective gear, because masks are in short supply, gloves are in short supply. So that was one of my concerns. Another one of my concerns is not bombarding the staff or the manager or the manager's office with complaints about, I went to McDonald's and picked up my lunch and no one was wearing a mask. And furthermore, I think my biggest concern is that I've talked to some individuals in the healthcare industry, and it's not about wearing a mask and gloves. It's about understanding how to use it, wearing it properly, not contaminating it, not putting it on and off, not wearing the same mask all day, not touching stuff with your gloves and then touching someone's food with the same pair of gloves that you've been wearing for hours. So I'm not sure that I completely understand the spirit of it, and I think that it needs to be addressed in some fashion, but perhaps followed up also with some educational material as to, you know, how to use this equipment. Because I've seen people, they wear their mask and then they get hot, so they put it over their head for a little bit and then they put it back on. You know, once it's contaminated with, you know, the environment, it kind of doesn't serve a purpose anymore. So those are kind of my concerns, where I don't feel that it will fully address the issue, but I guess it's better than nothing. So if we can accompany that with a little bit of educational material, I'd greatly appreciate that.
Anyone else?
If nobody else has anything, I'll just.
I just want to say something before you go. Hey, Councilman Dieguez, I think it's a good item, and I understand your point. My family was in the restaurant industry for a long time, and I can tell you, as a healthcare provider, one of the biggest misconceptions that people have is the use of gloves. The gloves gives you a false sense of security, and a lot of people are using gloves out there. You're seeing some of the pictures on social media that people are abusing the use of gloves, and it gives a false sense of security. And that if you're not putting it right, or you're throwing away the trash, or you're picking up dirty dishes and then you're transitioning to another dish, there's supposed to be hand washing in between all those aspects. And when you're wearing the gloves, people aren't hand washing. They feel that their hands are clean because they're protected by the gloves, but they're actually cross-contaminating everything that they're touching. The restaurant industry is one of the most regulated industries around, and so I love the spirit of it. And I think you're absolutely right, especially in this time of need. We really need to look at some of these thinking out of the box options that you've come up with. I would like maybe an amendment to your motion of looking at some restaurant industry experts. We have a lot of folks that live in the town that are either own restaurants or restaurant developers, or very involved in the restaurant business, that I think would be an asset to creating these standards and making this a complete resolution where we would bring, we would have that enforcement level, and also an education level, as the councilwoman said. I think educating the public or the restaurateurs is important. But I'd like for you to amend the motion. I'm not going to put a motion out there. I'm requesting that you look at bringing in some restaurateurs and asking them for their expertise. I don't have enough expertise in this to tell you you're right or wrong. I think the item is a good item and it's got a great spirit behind it. But that's what I would recommend that you add before that we institute something. The other issue that I'm concerned with is having our police the restaurants. I think this is a code enforcement issue or a food health issue, and maybe we need to address that way. But Councilwoman Romano stated that it would bombard another item onto the town staff and manager. So those are the little tweaks that I think that need to be addressed.
Thank you all, and as always, I take my colleagues' input seriously, and I think it makes the item better. So taking up the various issues that were raised one at a time, beginning with Councilwoman Morano's comments. The reason for saying the protective covering with specific regards to the face is that, as we heard from, I forget the gentleman's name, the doctor that spoke to us at the last council meeting, and from watching Dr. Fauci and a variety of these other doctors and scientists, they always say that the fastest way in which the virus spreads is through the droplets that are, what's the term I'm looking for, that come out of our mouths when we're speaking, when we sneeze, things of that nature, and sometimes they linger in the air even for a little bit. At least that's what I've been reading. There's some controversy on that point, but we all know that the concern with surfaces and with the close contact is over the droplets that are that come out. So having some protective covering may not be foolproof, but at least it is something that will reduce the spread, which is what all these measures that we're taking are for. So that is why I wanted to focus on a face covering as opposed to a particular mask. I think that with the gloves, especially after hearing the vice mayor's points, I think that makes a lot of sense. And so I will be making an amendment soon, that kind of addresses that. But at the educational component, to wrap up with the issues that you raised, I think that is a good idea. Of course, we're not in the business of being punitive for the sake of being punitive, or implementing laws just to say we did something. We're here to implement a common sense policy and making sure that we help everyone comply with it. So I like the idea as well. So I'll include something in my amendment on that point as well. Turning to the Vice Mayor's points, I think you raised a lot of good things that, to be honest with you, I hadn't thought about with respect to the gloves. And it's true what you say. Many of our restaurants have already implemented many of these things. You go to NQC, they got the gloves and they got the mask. So I know we have many good operators, and even the ones that I singled out, it's not that they're bad operators. It's just like Councilwoman Ronald said, they may not know. But as far as the enforcement part, I don't view it as being particularly onerous, because we're already basically tasking our officers not only to make sure that the grocery stores, from Costco to Publix, Winn-Dixie, that they're enforcing social distancing. We're also requiring that they look around to see who's not complying with the 6 feet rule requirement either in our parks and whatnot, or on the sidewalks. So we're already, in my opinion, giving them a lot. I'm not trying to put much more on their plate, but I'm just trying to give them a tool that if they see something that's egregious, to go ahead and be able to deal with it. So with that said, I will be making an amendment that I hope to get a second for, that would, instead of requiring gloves and protective covering for the face, it would only require protective covering of some kind for the face. Again, the idea being to reduce droplets that come out from when you speak and things of that nature, and when you sneeze. But omitting the glove requirement, asking the manager to put together some kind of summary of this requirement that would be disseminated to our restaurateurs, our pharmacies, and our grocery stores, as far as best practices on how to wear protective covering, especially masks. And lastly, on that point, to also give legal authority to our officers to enforce the mandatory requirement, whether that's through a fine or some other mechanism, whatever it is, perhaps that we currently already do with the social distancing measures that were recently enacted. So with that, that is my amendment, and I hope to have a second for it.
Hey, Councilman Villegas, before you get a second, I don't think you should take out the gloves completely. I think you should just add the word "were required." Gloves were required. That way, there's certain times where gloves are required, and there's certain times where they should wear them. And that's the only suggestion that I would say to add to that amendment.
I got an idea. So let me restate the amendment then. It would be to require protective covering for the face. It would be to direct the town manager to work with our local restaurant community on best practices with respect to gloves, with the handling. Adding an educational component on how to properly use masks and other face covering, and perhaps even with the cross-contamination issue. And finally, also, again, giving our police officers the authority to enforce the requirement.
I will second that.
Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, my only concern is effective date. Obviously, there's several steps that we need to take to, like the educational component, the giving them information about donning and doffing the equipment and the mask, and also the giving them enough time to procure it. Some of them may not have the equipment, and it is obviously not super readily available. So what I think we should maybe do is make the effective date that this goes into effect several days out into the future, and I just want to make sure that was okay with you.
Okay, yeah, I understand that point. Perhaps we'll make the effective date of the ordinance, let's say in 10 days' time.
May I think that this is very time sensitive, and the safety of the residents is of utmost importance. So if we're not mandating any particular mask, that you need to purchase a particular mask, I think that it's very time sensitive. It needs to come into effect sooner than that.
So, I mean, I guess this would be a little bit unusual, but perhaps that, perhaps in 5 days, to to develop and then to disseminate the informational items. I mean, we can easily, perhaps by end of day tomorrow, put some together that can be sent out in our email blast or something else, some other mechanism to get the information out about the coming requirement. Perhaps with, you know, and then, you know, so maybe actually perhaps by Monday, let's say, so that would be 2, 3.
How about effective Tuesday?
Okay, effective Tuesday for purposes of the educational component and the requirement. And then, you know, after that is when you'll be able to work with the business community on best practices with respect to the handling of items.
Okay.
We're giving leniency. We're also giving leniency for the time that's required to get all these products, right? I mean, that's a concern.
Yeah. Even though it would be mandatory, as I stated, it would be with the intent that our officers, even though they have this enforcement authority, their initial step, as they would with when they go to enforce the social distancing guidelines, when they do that, I'm sure they're not just immediately arresting people or implementing fines. You know, they would first, hey, you know, kind of this is your warning to go ahead and, you know, to get in compliance, you know. But yeah, it would be with the specific intent that there would be first a notice period before moving to any penalty.
Mr. Manager, anything on that you want to?
No, I think that, you know, I got clear direction. We'll put it together. We'll issue it as an emergency order tomorrow. We'll make it effective Tuesday morning, let's say. We'll provide something that we can get to, you know, to the restaurants. And I just want to be clear. So it's restaurants, bakeries, ice cream shops, pharmacies.
Yes, and grocery stores.
Grocery stores.
Gas stations and grocery stores.
Yes.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Go ahead.
The only concern I have is I find it hard to believe that none of these orders, or either from the Department of Agriculture or anything like that, aren't touching on this. Because I know the Department of Agriculture is involved with some of the gyms and things like that, and they were issuing rulings or mandates. You know, I mean, I have no problem with doing this, but please know that I find it hard to believe that they, you know, Department of Agriculture or whatever departments there are at the state level that govern restaurants weren't enacting something like this as well.
Go ahead, Councilman
I think the proof is in the pudding that a lot of the restaurants are not using it. For sure, the grocery stores, that they're not, you know, I think that most of those have given it as an option. They're allowing their employees, and actually the measure that Council Member Dieguez referenced, the measure that Mayor Jimenez issued today, it encourages employers to allow their employees to do it. So if that's the case, that they're allowing them, I doubt that it's a mandate that they have to by some other regulatory agency or a regulatory department.
Yeah,
So we're going to take it up a step. In other words, the council wants to take it up a step and make it mandatory.
Councilman Dieguez, that's what you're looking for, right?
That is correct. Again, it's just taking another measure to reduce the spread. Because again, one thing that has been clear throughout this entire process is that the concern is always about the droplets that are emitted from when you sneeze or speak to somebody in close proximity. Right. So the idea is, even if it's a bandana, right? The whole point is if you cough, you're coughing to the bandana, you know, and even if perhaps somewhere to get away, you're reducing the level of exposure. So that's why we're taking it up a bit more in an abundance of caution.
Councilman
And at the
Collazo's
same
next.
time, providing flexibility, you know, by not saying it has to be a mask per se. or
ahead, Coach.
saying that it has to be N95 or anything like that, which of course our healthcare workers need.
Thank you, Councilman Gayaso. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. 2 points that I think were clarified. We're not just limiting this to restaurants, from my understanding. And the second thing that I want to make sure that everybody is aware, and I know, Vice Mayor, you're aware of this, is the very nature of this illness has people within close proximity of each other, and they're asymptomatic. They're not even showing symptoms, and they're not going to show symptoms for some time. So being preemptive and having somebody cover their face, which we know is a place or the area that these droplets are coming out from, while they are asymptomatic, it's another layer of protection which keeps it from coming in contact with food surfaces that then we ingest. So while I'm mentioning restaurants in this example, the reality is any place where you're having customer service or you're having people come into contact with each other where there may be this risk, I think a face covering, and I think the Councilman Diego said, you know, even just a simple kerchief around the mouth is something that adds an added layer of protection that keeps the virus from spreading. So those of us who are in healthcare and know how this virus is acting and how it's reacting and how asymptomatic people can be spreading this within close proximity to each other could probably appreciate just the sense of having some type of face covering to address this issue. And again, I don't think it's being overly onerous or burdensome. It's just reacting to what's happening now. And what I've heard is the CDC may be coming back with some type of recommendation for the general public when being out and about to have some type of face covering on in the very near future. So I think it's very timely. I don't think we have to overcomplicate it. I don't think it has to be something where we're out there punishing, but really just educating people. Say, hey, you know, you're out and about and you're interacting with each other in the public setting. And if you're one of these operators that are staying open, please just cover your face. Food service establishments are already covering their hands and doing proper hand washing. I'm less concerned about them, more concerned about maybe other places that are not. So I think it's sound considering the issues that we're facing now.
I completely agree. And before I know that I think we have the attorney first, Mr. Lorenzo, and then Councilwoman Ruano. By the way, very nice on throwing out that word, not calling it a bandana, circuit. What was it? You called it something else, Councilman Collazo.
He did call it something else. I don't remember what
a kerchief. A kerchief. Very, very old word. I haven't heard in a long, long time. Very Boy Scout of you.
Word of the day.
Very Boy Scout of you. Go ahead, Mr. Lorenzo.
My question is thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. My question is to Councilman Dieguez. Councilman, so you envision this as being part of our emergency procedures during the time that we are under an emergency because of the COVID-19. So it would be added to those orders, correct?
Correct, yeah, and I apologize if I didn't specify that enough. Yes, it's not meant like, of course, it's not on a permanent basis or anything. It's just as part of the protective measures that we're taking at this particular time. So for the duration of the emergency.
Excellent. Councilwoman Ruano.
Thank you so much. And that was one of the things that I wanted to address in listening to the press conferences. In particular, I believe Dr. Fauci recommended that we use a face covering. It doesn't have to be any particular face covering. He wasn't so much concerned about an N95 mask. I think that that's more for people that are in direct contact in hospitals, or first responders, nurses, doctors, that kind of thing. For the restaurant industry, for supermarkets, I think that we can be lenient and allow them to use whatever face covering they feel necessary. I did want to ask one question. I know that those are essential businesses that have been allowed, particularly the food industry. Those are businesses that have been allowed to remain open as long as it is for takeout service. And there haven't been any guidelines passed down with regards to, and I think it's along the lines of what the town attorney was saying. There haven't been any guidelines passed down for these particular businesses that are open as takeout service. For takeout service, they haven't been given any guidance on that.
I am not aware of any particular guidelines that have been handed down with respect to takeout establishments. I don't know if maybe the manager can help me answer that because I'm not aware as far as takeout. But I think this measure would assist in excuse me, in that regard.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Has the restaurant industry, I know that a part of the essential businesses, the list of essential businesses or the businesses that are allowed to remain open, restaurants are on that list so long as they are only open for takeout service, correct?
Out or delivery.
Okay, for delivery or for takeout. So
all the dining rooms are closed.
Correct. So the food industry hasn't passed down any guidelines with respect to, anything different that their employees have to do with handling of food, such as masks or scarves or.
No, and I've seen it, right? Because I've gone. Sometimes I've got the delivery. Sometimes I go and pick it up from a window, and I've seen the full gamut. I've seen people with nothing, no facial coverings, no gloves. I've seen sometimes they show up with a mask only, sometimes mask and gloves. So I've seen the full gamut. I think it's up to now it's been left up to a personal choice, or maybe a restaurant by restaurant, they've developed their own individual policy. But I don't believe that it's been handed down any kind of ruling or recommendation from as an industry standard or any kind of regulatory agency.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I can't see some of the other council members, so if you're there, please speak up if you have anything else to say. Okay. Go ahead, Madam Clerk. Can you read the motion so we can vote on it? You're on mute.
Oh, okay, here we go. So we have a main motion and we have the amendment. I'm going to start by the main motion. The main motion was motion to.
Wait, we have to vote on the amendment first, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
All right,
the amendment.
All right,
But
so.
if I may, let me read what I have of the main motion. Okay, let me read the amendment. The amendment was an amendment by Councilman Dieguez, seconded by Councilwoman Ruano, to make it as a requirement for employees that work in the food industry and as well in pharmacies and gas stations, all the ones mentioned in his memo, to wear a face covering, a mask, some sort of a face covering mask, and for the town manager to put together, to do some kind of writing, educational writing, best practices and share them with the food, with these businesses, for this to be done by tomorrow. Best practices and I believe enforced by Tuesday. As well, I have in my notes for the police officers to enforce these best practices. That's what I have for the amendment.
Right, go ahead and read the main
I
motion.
left
So we
something
know
out.
what Councilman Dieguez, anything else that?
No, I think she covered it. Effective date of Tuesday with, and it was the manager that just pointed out that they would, work an order by tomorrow that would implement, what we discussed tonight, and, would develop the public education component as well by then, so that by Tuesday we're guns blazing, everything's working. Right? Did I get that, Mr. Manager?
And so what was the final outcome on gloves are included or not included?
They are going to be, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that part was not included in what she read there. So yeah, with respect to that, we weren't, in the amendment, I did not specifically include it in there. But there was a provision for you to work with with these affected businesses on best practices on how to handle, say, groceries or food. Should it be with gloves or should there be some other policy in place? As the Vice Mayor pointed out, there are issues of cross-contamination that may arise when you're using gloves, whereas the usual practice would be that each time you go from one thing to the next, you would wash your hands in between. You don't have that with gloves. So the idea would be that, whatever you incorporate in a future order with respect to the hands component, would be worked out with these industries on what would be the best practice, because they may diverge a little bit. Restaurants, of course, being different from a grocery store.
So we won't make the gloves a mandate. We'll make them part of the educational campaign, and just say, if you're going to use gloves, these are some of the things that you should consider about not using the same gloves over and over, replacing them so you don't cross-contaminate. It'll be more of the educational campaign to cover the gloves. So if in case they use them, this is how you should use them.
Yes.
Okay. And does this also include for the delivery guys or just the in-restaurant type people? I mean, what about the Uber Eats guys and the delivery guys?
I think with the delivery services, those would be incredibly difficult to enforce within our boundaries, because they often are taking delivery orders in and outside of Miami Lakes. So the focus with this is really for the takeout, like the people that prepare the food, which would automatically deal with the takeout people, or at least the people that go and pick up from the restaurant, or delivery straight from the restaurant, because some of the restaurants will deliver themselves.
Not the delivery people.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Not the Uber Eats of the world and people of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, the delivery is two different things. Sometimes it's in-house, like I know Outback uses their own people to do the delivery. Some other restaurants may use a service like Uber Eats or what have you. So we'll just leave delivery people as a general rule. We'll leave them out of this mandate.
Yeah, because then you'd almost have to pull over every car. Because what if they're, because they're often not in a marked car. So
So
that's
we want
like
to make it realistic.
Right. Okay, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
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 All right, seeing no nays, we go to the main motion. All in favor of the main motion?
Aye.
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 All right. Okay, Madam Clerk, thank you. Will somebody let the mayor and Councilman Rodriguez out of purgatory so they can
We're
join us?
back.
We put a lot of regulations on you, Mayor.
Thank you. We're on to. Thank you. We're on to the next item. I'll just combine them just real quick. Groceries for seniors and the meals for Hero Kids. I mean, these are two initiatives that have taken a life of their own. The Brianna Vergara Foundation and Giving Gators have taken ownership of this and the lead to reach out to these folks. I know tomorrow today we had a huge shipment. Councilman Collazo was there, helped out our folks, some of our volunteers. We needed a lot of volunteers with a couple masks and stuff. So it's greatly appreciated. One of the major issues that we've seen in during hurricane, we can get dozens and dozens of volunteers, but during a pandemic, especially a novel coronavirus that nobody knows the long-term outcome, it's very difficult to get volunteers, even with the proper personal protection equipment. But yeah, today they did great. Tomorrow they're going to go out and deliver about 100 groceries, weekly groceries that are good for an entire week. I think things from broccoli, tomatoes, an entire frozen chicken, eggs, milk, to you name it. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, to seniors throughout the town of Miami Lakes. And also the program for Heroes. One thing we really found was that a lot of folks weren't aware that they can pick up the meals at the school sites themselves from 4 to 7. So a lot of times when people reached out to us and asked questions, they were like, hey, I didn't know I can just pick it up myself. So a lot of folks are now going on their own. I think there's a couple folks that they had helped out the other day, but people are going out on their own, and it's complementary with what the Elderly Affairs Committee is doing, which is the wellness calls. And I know Councilman Collazo will report on that, but I wanted to give him kudos because I know he's in an industry, and he's an administrator of a site that is one of these sites that he needs to be there 24/7 protecting his patients and stuff like that. Yet he had an opportunity to swing by and say hi to the folks this morning and running around. So, which was greatly appreciated. But whoever's around tomorrow, jump in, call Dave, call Jesus, and they'll get you guys going. There's a lot of 100 seniors that are going to be getting groceries delivered tomorrow for the entire week, and then During the week, it gets handed off to the Elderly Affairs Committee for the wellness calls, which Councilman Collazo can he'll chime upon right now. Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the opportunity to bring the item up and speaking about it. As you said, the Elderly Affairs Committee has activated Jerry Squad, so there are seniors that we consider vulnerable seniors that have been getting wellness checks. Those seniors are being asked questions. Most of them are being linked to the Miami-Dade County Meal Program, which is a 311 service or a service that's being offered by 311. The Miami-Dade County service brings a hot meal to the person's home. So our staff, including Ashley Sheppel and people from the Elderly Affairs Committee and volunteers as well as Rosie Barroso, have been reaching out to seniors and troubleshooting different cases and making sure that they're getting meals delivered to their home apart from the grocery service that the Groceries for Seniors is offering. It's an opportunity again to troubleshoot issues before they happen, and we've had a lot of success. And really, the kudos goes out to the staff who've been very supportive, as well as Joseph Sosa and your staff, Mayor. But all the volunteers that are out there that are making calls in this era of social isolation, where we're not necessarily as engaged as we used to be, because we had hordes of volunteers stepping up. It's been difficult to manage, but at least the phone bank is something that we can all manage remotely and make sure their most vulnerable people are taken care of. So thank you very much. And that summarizes my report on the work of the Elderly Affairs Committee and the wellness checks. Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to omit, the manager and the police department have also been doing a great job in reaching out to our assisted living facility within the town. And I know we've had several governor emergency orders, as well as some Department of Health advisories, which I know the manager has been making sure that they're aware of through doing spot checks with the police department, giving them the information. So thank you, Mr. Manager.
Yeah,
thank you,
to Councilmember Collazo's credit, a lot of the things that we're providing to the ALS, he's the source of us getting a lot of that stuff. So he's being modest over there. He's providing us a lot of information from his elderly care world, and
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Councilman Collazo and council and everybody watching. As hopefully this ends soon, but if this goes on a little bit more prolonged, the need is going to grow and grow. So we need as many folks to participate, get involved, give back, and we'll go through. After this is all done, we'll celebrate all the folks that gave back and participated. Hopefully we can get past this as soon as possible. We're on to Councilman Alvarez's item report. Councilman Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment. Do you hear echoing in the background? Try to unmute yourself later if you may, see if it works better.
If I may, Council Albert, can you maybe be closer to your computer? I think we can, yes, there we go. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, can you hear me better?
Yes, okay. Yes, Principal Alvarez.
So I just wanted to highlight a lot of our schools during their virtual learning transition and their education outcomes. I've been able to witness myself, and I guess selfishly, the school that I represent, we've had a 95% attendance in the first 2 weeks of virtual learning. Our counselors are still being on duty for our students during counselor hours. We've had Parent Academy workshops through Zoom. We had over 200 parents attend, learning how to navigate through these uncharted waters and learning how to support their children through virtual learning. In addition to that, the new batch of students that will be coming into our school will be also conducting a virtual orientation. I know some of our sister schools, Matter Lakes as well, jumped right into virtual education on March 17th. They didn't skip a beat. Matter Lakes has been a school that thrives on innovation, learning, and has been a big family of support during this pandemic to all of its students. They've issued over hundreds of laptops to students, and they even issued laptops to their sister schools. Over at Matter Middle High has been featuring alumni spotlights. They've been recognizing alumni still virtually. They've been posting life skills, matter life skills, a daily lesson during these challenging times and during this transition for our students. They've also been recognizing students that have been accepted into different colleges, different universities. And in addition to that, they've used, like a lot of our schools have used different mediums of educational learning through PowerPoints, ebooks, teaching students how to annotate. You've even gone in and seen teachers holding a dry erase board and teaching mathematical problems. I spoke to a teacher at Miami Lakes K-8, Miss Rodriguez, and this is what she tells me. I love my kids. I will do absolutely the best to strive for their continued education. Distance learning has become the new norm. As a third grade reading teacher, I have added virtual lessons for my students according to their data in order to meet their individual needs. I communicate daily with parents and students. I want my students to feel safe and that their teacher has not abandoned them. I wasn't born to just teach. I was born to inspire others, to change people, and to never give up, even with faced with challenges that seem impossible. I'm sure a lot of our additional schools in Miami Lakes are doing phenomenal stuff, and these are some that have just resonated and stood out. But I know at Bob Graham, there was an enormous line for deployment of electronic devices prior to school closures as well. And, you know, if any of our schools in Miami Lakes, you have an awesome story to share, you know, please feel free to email me, and I'd love to hear about how you're doing and so forth. But I really am proud of how our students have been resilient. I think we may have taken it for granted, their resiliency and how well they have transitioned to educational learning. I wake up in the morning and my daughter, you know, is already on online learning at 8 a.m. in the morning. So, you know, kudos to all our educators. Kudos to all our teachers. I'm very proud of my teachers, my staff, my administrative team, and I'm very proud of all the principals, administrative team members, and teachers throughout the Miami Lakes communities that are really thinking outside the box and using these innovative approaches to still deliver instruction at a consistent level, at a flexible level, and at a compassionate level to all our students in Miami Lakes and all students throughout different communities here in this great state.
Thank you, Councilman Alvarez. And you hit it on the head. All of our educators, administrators, support staff are doing a great job transitioning to virtual learning. And we know it hasn't been easy. We weren't expecting this to last that long, but it's interesting how nimble our educators are and how fast they transition. So thank you for that. Now we're on to manager's report. Mr. Manager, 16A, then we'll end with 16B.
Council member had an item.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I combined it. I kind of gave my remarks when we were talking about some of the ongoing activity we were doing with our seniors and some of the work that you had been doing as well behind the scenes. Thank you.
All right. With regard, the first item that I have is just I wanted to put before you the rules that we put together. We meaning Lorenzo, put together, and based on the guidance from the governor's order, as well as he consulted with some of the other city attorneys in South Florida, and came up with the rules that he put together for the virtual meeting. So I wanted to put it before you. If you have items that are glaring, that you want to amend, that you want to adjust, if you want to take them, I can put them before you again to give you a couple more weeks to look at them again. And then we can look at it and actually make amendments when the dust settles a little bit at the April 21st meeting. I just wanted to put it before you for you to decide on how you wanted to proceed with these rules.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Are there any motions to adopt the rules, special rules for virtual meetings? I think today's gone excellent, and I think it'll set the tone for future meetings that we have to do virtually. So I'm okay with it. Are there any motions?
Yeah, I'll propose the motion.
There's a motion on the table, and there's a second by Councilman Diegues. Any discussion, council, on these rules, review and amend special rules for virtual meetings? Any discussion? Seeing nobody? Got it. Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes, and we've adopted the special rules for virtual meetings. We're on to the next item, which was added on by Councilman Diegues, which was a manager's report regarding the impact of COVID-19 on our upcoming budget process, which actually starting in April, we're in April now, but it's right around the corner. It's not a year away. It starts very soon. So, Mr. Manager, unless Councilman Diegues, you want to break the ice on that. Okay, Mr. Manager.
Right. I mean, early on in this whole catastrophe, in this outbreak, we started thinking, the town administration, especially our folks from finance and budget, we started thinking, is there going to be a budgetary impact? Is there going to be a financial impact to this outbreak? So we didn't know, but I think the meeting was March 16th. March 16th is when we kind of first met to kind of ask ourselves, could this potentially have an immediate budgetary impact, maybe more of a long-term budgetary impact? We met on the 16th, myself, our deputy town manager, Tony Lopez, our chief financial officer, Ismael Diaz, and our budget manager, Melissa Hernandez. And we looked at all of the funds, and we believe that there will be minimal to no impact during this year. Obviously, our revenues are heavy to the beginning of the fiscal year, but we believe that there should not be a significant budgetary impact in the current fiscal year. Looking forward to next fiscal year, it all depends on the dynamics of what this disease does, what this virus does with regard to how is it going to impact on property values. We have some offsets, we believe, moving forward for at least next fiscal year. We have offsets because we have a lot of construction. We have, I don't know all that is going to be coming online, but we have a significant amount of new construction that will come. So even if there is some kind of flattening of property values, we believe the new construction will help to offset that. And we also have another revenue stream, which was the basis for all of our workshops back in August, which is the FP&L franchise fee. We're going to have a full year next year, so that is a tremendous offset for any loss in property tax revenue. So I believe that for sure our analysis is we don't believe we're going to have a significant hit, especially. And even next year with the offsets of new construction, as well as a full year of FP&L franchise fee, we believe that we should be okay next fiscal year. But when we get closer to the budget compilation time period, when we start getting into May, June, we're going to have a better idea of what the horizon is for this virus. Is it going to be a 2 or 3 month thing? Is it going to be an 18-month thing? We're going to see if there are any developments within the medical field that are going to help to shorten the horizon on this virus. So I think we'll know better by the time we get to the summer if we start together next year's budget.
I had a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, the floor is yours, Councilman Diegues.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be brief. Through the mayor to the town manager, I had a question with, okay, so our facilities right now are closed down, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, I don't want to impose anything draconian, but if this does drag out for more than a month of our facilities being closed, how does that impact the town with respect to any contractors that are performing activities there or would normally be performing activities there?
Well, the folks that are day to day there, right? Like our janitorial staff, we have not suspended their services. We have not terminated their services, even in the outlying facilities like our parks and the youth center, et cetera. You know, these are folks that are not high paid individuals. They're not our employees. They're not our employees. So, but they are contractors, and they're with us full time. They work here. This is the only place that we have the same people assigned here all the time. It's the same janitorial crew. We have the same handyman. Even though they work for another entity, they almost feel and act like our employees, and they're not highly paid. So I did not want to contribute to the downturn in the economy. As we saw, we had, I think it was 6 million unemployment claims in the last week or two. 6 million, which is it's incredible. Normally, a regular week is like a low, around 200,000, and we had 6 million unemployment claims. We've had an unemployment rate that's, some are forecasting that it may be 30%. So I did not want to add to that. So I instructed our staff to treat the contractors like our janitorial and handyman, to treat them just like staff. For now.
Okay. Yeah, no, of course, I don't want to contribute to it much either. But again, I don't know if we're equipped to necessarily carry the burden if it goes on for too long. So like you said, for now, of course, obviously I love the cleaning staff here at Town Hall, for example. They're excellent people, salt of the earth. But if this goes on for longer than a month, I think we need to start, really evaluating what we do to protect the taxpayer as well.
I can tell you that what we have done, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I just the thought that I wanted to make sure I brought out before I'm getting old timer's disease. I don't want to forget it, So I wanted to make sure that I told all of you that what we have done with these crews, we have repurposed them. Okay, so what we have done is like the crews that we have in the outlying facilities, we brought them into Town Hall. We've done like a head to toe super scrub of Town Hall. We're doing the same in the outer facilities. So it's not like we're paying them and having them stand in the corner and stare at each other. We are repurposing them, and we're having them do the super scrub clean outs. And especially considering there's still there's 3 of us that are coming here to Town Hall still. Myself, Tony, and Lorenzo, we're still coming here on a daily basis. We're maintaining social distancing. But so there is still minimal, yes, but activity here in Town Hall. And obviously we don't want to let the other facilities, deteriorate, right? So even though there's not activity, there's not people through there, we don't want it when we're ready to reoccupy, I don't want it to look like, a dust storm in there. So we are keeping them doing, not with the same frequency that they had before, but we do want them to do, concentrate and do super scrubs of all of the other facilities, and then do a maintenance clean out. So there is still a purpose to them. We're not, and I think for their own sanity, I don't think that it's good for them to just sit around and stare at each other. So we are keeping them busy with doing these heavy cleanups of the facilities, mostly Town Hall, but also of the other facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and that satisfies my line of questioning, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor. Yes, Vice Mayor.
No, Mr. Manager, you see the Royal Oaks Park. I mean, during the day, those folks are the only people that are staffing the parks, and the afternoon, especially at Royal Oaks Park, the field maintenance is going on, cleaning up the trash from the blowing winds and stuff like that. So those folks, at least at Royal Oaks Park, that I can see on a daily basis, are not just sitting there. They've been out there cutting the grass and doing their maintenance and doing their stuff that they need to be doing. So it's a good opportunity the grass is getting a rest and the fields are getting a rest, but they're still working out there, and I can see them on a daily basis.
The last comment I wanted to make with regard to budget is there are some added expenses that are directly related to the COVID. Not exorbitant, they're actually fairly minor, but they are expenses. I'm probably going to bring them before you at the April 21st meeting to set up a line that we can fund some of these things that I've already given the green light to do. I think they're absolutely necessary. We have contracted with a company to not just a cleaning, but a disinfecting of town hall. We're gonna have them come, I think it's either every day or 3 times a week to the police station, because the police station is continuing to get constant movement with those officers. And they do, it's like a 2-hour process. They go through there. It's like, it's not harmful, so it doesn't harm computers, but it is a disinfecting process that they use. We're actually even gonna do it once a week to the bus shelters. We're doing it, we did like a light version of it to the outer facilities, and we're probably gonna wait until there's gonna be people in there again, and then we'll do it before we reopen the parks. So a couple expenses similar to that are not really big, but I definitely, they're gonna be, I'll detail those for you at the April 21st meeting, so you're aware.
So just in closing with the manager along these lines, and I do agree with you that we should not be contributing based on what Senator Rubio and Senator Scott and what Congress just passed on the payroll protection program. That we got to do everything in our power, at least the next three months, I would say, to make sure we keep as many folks employed, because that's really what the role of the payroll protection program was, to keep as many people off the unemployment rolls, keep them working so the economy can come back online. So I know it's 2.5 times your actual payroll. So I mean, I don't know if some of these folks are actually, you know, even their own businesses, but I just wanted to make a note of that, because I definitely agree with that. I don't want to be our government, especially if we can work on this. We don't have to be we don't have to add folks to the unemployment line either. Yes, Councilwoman Morano.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I actually wanted to bring that up. These employees of these subcontractors are protected by the Paycheck Protection Program. So the subcontractor can file paperwork with their financial institution to request a loan to allow them to continue to pay their employees, even though their employees are temporarily not working. That's not something that we as a municipality can do, but it's something that's been put in place, and these will be turned into federal grants. So these will not be loans that have to be repaid, but the intention is to have some assistance for these employees that are temporarily out of work, not necessarily for us to continue to carry that burden, but this is part of the act that passed so that the federal government can help us out a little bit, and these employees won't be left behind.
So Councilwoman, just to be clear, because I know you work on this every day. So what you're saying is these subcontractors would use the program to keep those employees, because that's really the point of the program, is to keep people working, right? It's not a handout. It's to make sure that people are still working. So you're saying is that if our subcontractors apply for this, that in theory, the employees can continue working at our parks and all that stuff. Is that what you were implying?
The theory, I'm sorry, there was an echo. The theory is that they can continue to pay those employees, even if those employees are temporarily out of work. That it's not a program that we can apply for, but it's a program that the subcontractor itself has to apply for his staff, because these employees are considered part of their staff, not ours.
No, I know exactly what you're saying, but it's for that to kick in. Here's my question, because you're doing this. I know you had said the other day that you're doing this for several businesses. Does that mean we would have to terminate the contract with the people we have, or how would that work, since they're getting money directly from a government entity? How? I just want a clarification on that, because I know you work on this every day.
Right. The government is going to help the subcontractor pay their employees, because they're assuming that the subcontractor, their workload has diminished because of the lack of services that are needed. So, for example, in my office, if my clients are not coming in to see me and they're not paying me because they're afraid to get sick, this loan would help me pay my staff, even though I don't have the financial resources to do so. And as long as I use that loan to pay my staff, it will turn into a grant. So if we, for whatever reason, cease our services with the subcontractor, now the subcontractor doesn't have the funding to pay the employees, that funding would come from the Paycheck Protection Plan monies. And as long as they use those monies to pay the employees, then that becomes a grant. And they
But
won't-
as long as they use the money to pay the employees to keep them working.
No, even if they're not, even if they're not working, that becomes a burden on the subcontractor to figure out how to get this loan to continue to pay their employees. It's not something that we can do. If we continue to have their employees on staff and we continue to pay the subcontractor, there's no need for the loan. The subcontractor doesn't have to ask for the loan because they're not in any financial strain. We are continuing to pay the subcontractor pays the employee. So there's no lack of funding there. The subcontractor would access this loan if they don't have the funds to pay their employees. Do you follow me?
No, I understand completely. So I mean, I get it. Where I know a lot of folks are going, but yeah, my main point was going back to the intent of everything that's going on. So as long, and that's where I agree with the manager, as long as we can keep people employed, and going back to Councilman Diegues's a position, as long as we can keep people employed, I want to make sure that happens, because the manager's absolutely right. These folks, a lot of our regular employees are salaried, they have pensions, they have health care, they have this and that. A lot of these folks are, forget about paycheck to paycheck. A lot of these subcontractors that we work with, they're day by day. So I want to make sure that we protect those folks as much as we can and as long as we can, because that's kind of doing our little bit in our side of Northwest Dade to make sure that people are still working and being productive and all that. So just wanted to touch upon that, Councilman Diegues and Mr. Manager. All right, seeing no further, yes, Mr. Manager, then Councilman Collazo.
Yeah, and my fear is that subcontractors, we say we don't need the services of these people. My fear, which I'm not even saying that because they are serving a purpose, and I don't want our facilities, if we're down for a month or a month and a half, I don't want our facilities to deteriorate. But my fear is that the contractors' alternative, instead of worrying about applying for a grant, and my fear is that they'll just terminate or furlough these employees. So that's right now we have control over this, and I don't want to put that control in the hands of somebody else who may not treat them the same way that we would. That's what I'm afraid of.
I agree with you, Mr. Manager. Hey, Councilman Collazo, then I'll go to Councilwoman Morano.
Yeah, my question was to the manager. Mr. Manager, you said that you have procured some new services or new disinfecting and cleaning services, in particular for the police department and for town hall, while yourself and Tony Lopez are coming here and utilizing town hall. Is these new services that you procured basically the same repurposing of the janitorial staff, or did you enter into a new contract for new services beyond the scope of the janitorial staff?
It's with the same janitorial company, but it's with a different set of people that have different set of training. They have different know-how on the chemicals. They have special suits that they wear when they do it. So it's with the janitorial company. They gave us the best price. And so they're the ones who are going to do it, but I guess a different wing of their operation. It's
Let me ask you, being innovative,
repurposing these people and using them. In fact, they told us that they needed special training and the special know-how on equipment, and so we asked them if those same people, if our janitorial crew can do that, and they told us that.
So, being that we're prognosticating that this is going to be a long-term thing, and we're making significant investments in keeping these people employed, why don't we make the ask to have our current crew trained or cross-trained in those areas? So rather than taking on some new responsibilities or new liabilities, which we weren't necessarily planning for, we can retool, repurpose them, and put them to work in those new functions. And that way it's a win-win for both people. It's a win-win for the taxpayers, and we're making sure that we're getting value out of those employees. It's a win for that company because they're keeping their people trained. And maybe it's an opportunity for us to save money, not necessarily spend additional money on that service, unless it's a capacity issue that they can't be trained or they don't have the skill set in that. And I'm all with the mayor, challenging people, and especially in times of need. I think you get the best out of humanity. So maybe it's an opportunity to cross-train them and get more value out of them.
Yeah, and I guess I'll go back to, we can't just, I wouldn't recommend just not using them for what we've been using them. It's not like they're completely surplus. And what it would be, it wouldn't be new expense other than for the cleaning, for the disinfecting part. So, I mean, I don't want to necessarily have a windfall by getting rid of these people. So, but we, and obviously we're only a couple weeks into this whole dynamic. And we'll look at all that, but we did look and we asked the question. Our facilities manager dealt with the janitorial crew and asked them whether they can do that. I know that the deputy town manager was involved in some of those discussions, and the works director. So, and it was, and the reply was that they were not capable of that kind of work. So I don't know if it involves a special skill set or capacity to understand the chemicals that they're dealing with, which is a unique chemical. And one thing that I failed to mention is that disinfection process, we're also doing it in the guard gates, because the guard gates are staffed 24 hours a day.
Councilwoman Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, would you be able to fill us in on more or less what the cost of these new services are going to be and what line item we're going to be getting funding from?
Right now, they're being funded from a facilities maintenance line, if I'm not mistaken. And the rates, I've gotten the rates based on the service, depend, like for the police station it's so much a week, because they're going to go there more often than like the Royal Oaks Park or the bus shelters. So I'll prepare that and I'll send it to you by email so you can all have it. So I don't want to misquote what the numbers are, but I'll send that to you in a written format sometime tomorrow.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that that we are completely fiscally responsible in the decisions that we make. And I think that I agree with you. The decision will be different, whether this is a 2-week process or a 2-month process. I adore the staff members that we have at our facilities and at Town Hall. They are just absolute best. Their employer needs to do right by them. There are mechanisms that have been put in place. There are $2 trillion that have been put in place for employers to do right by their employees. Hopefully their employer will not do them wrong by not taking advantage of the things that are in place and furloughing them or firing them. That's not the right thing to do.
Any further comments from the council? Seeing none, as we're about to adjourn this meeting, just wanted to thank everybody, proud of our staff, proud of our council. Yes, Councilman Dieguez.
Very briefly, and I did request the manager to alert everybody that I wanted to make this quick announcement with respect to the census. For those who don't know, we are now at 45% of households self-reporting. The deadline to respond to the census, which usually would be in July, has been extended to August. So even though April 1st, yesterday, was Census Day, for all those watching, you still have an opportunity to help bring home more of your tax dollars to the town of Miami Lakes to pay for all the sorts of things that you expect: road repaving, road repairs, sidewalk repairs, you name it. So please, for those who have not yet done so, go ahead and fill out the census. You need your census ID, but if you don't have it, maybe you didn't get in the mail, maybe you lost it, whatever the case may be, you can still recover it by going online or calling the Census Bureau, and they will gladly provide it to you. So please do your part to make sure that Miami Lakes comes out of this crisis stronger than ever and is able to keep our taxes low by bringing more of the tax dollars that we pay to the federal government back home to our community. So please do your part. Again, we're at 45%. That's exciting. That's over 3% of the average Florida reporting rate. So we're doing fantastic. So please keep it up, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comment. Yes, I see the Vice Mayor waving at me.
Mayor, just real quick on the census issue, we need to redo the research on how we're going to get those funds in, because the zip, every time you put in your information for census, it shows up as Hialeah. You can't even change it to Miami Lakes. So if Councilman Dieguez has a way to tell us how that funding is not going to go to Hialeah and it's going to actually come to Miami Lakes, we need to address that, because a lot of residents have asked me that, and I don't have the proper answer. So we'll leave that for another day, another answer, and another day. It's almost 11 o'clock now, but if you have it away, please just send it to the clerk, and she can send it over to me, and I can answer the question for the resident.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our staff. Thank you to our council. I really appreciate everybody. Proud of everybody for coming together. We have to continue preaching in our society as a whole, especially with this unknown virus. Unity from the federal level, the state level, county level, to make sure that our communities come together, we work together. That's the only way we are going to get past the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, is by coming together as a society. So thank you guys for a great meeting. God bless. Proud of our entire community. Let's keep working together, and let's keep moving forward. This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, guys. Bye.